pre-show.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting that at all.
I mean, that was pretty offensive. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
This is
Wait, you didn't go live yet, did you?
Yeah, I did.
God damn it.
That's literally how the stream is starting for today. Yeah. They just for the record, that was a joke. Nothing was
Sure.
actually
I mean,
said.
I would be walking it back if I said that too.
Okay. Okay. These are lies and slander. Hello everyone. Today we have another wonderful live stream show for you guys. Well, I don't know. I guess time will tell.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be all right.
We have we have a number of topics to get to today. But first of all, welcome to everybody in the chat, and welcome to my fellow co-hosts. We got to come up with a name for this podcast.
Maybe we should
I
start
thought that we were
poll.
going to make people vote on it.
Yeah, we should. We should compile a list of potential options and then have people vote on it, which could go horribly wrong.
Well, I mean, we
But,
already have the list from the
Let's
the
do
chat,
that.
right?
I know we had 2 of them.
Maybe. Anyways, we'll get going here. Just a quick order of business, couple orders of business. One is, as listener has commented, there is Headphone Show Bingo. And so I'm just going to pin this.
We
so
really
you
need
can
to
play-
make one of those like cycling things for it, where people can go to the website and actually, properly play it with slightly different cards.
Well, no, they do.
Yeah, you just click on the thing
Oh,
in the chat.
Yeah, that
and
link
then it
actually
generates.
does give everyone a unique
oh,
card.
cool. Okay,
The
I
thing
didn't
we
know.
need to do is we need to add more things and then have
Exactly.
a random cycle
Exactly.
through them.
Yeah,
yep, right.
yeah.
So Headphone Show Bingo is linked for those who want to play it. Then also, as usual, all of this is made possible by headphones.com. So check out headphones.com for all things to do with audio, including our reviews. Written reviews are up there. Listener has a great article on this headphone and why Soundstage is a meme. But also, it's a great place to learn about and buy headphones, should you so choose. So check out
And speakers.
headphones.com.
And
And
cables.
speakers.
And in
And
some
DACs and
cases,
amps.
DACs and amps.
In some cases. So we can launch into this week's live stream, and we have a number of topics. We, of course, are going to talk about audio's biggest noob trap, but there's a couple other things that have sort of been... There's some newsworthy stuff to get to first, so we will launch into that forthwith. If I can do this. Also, as usual, guys, let us know how the audio levels are. We're using ping.gg again, so shout outs to ping. If it's all good, then there's nothing to complain about, but let us know.
And please let us know quickly. The comments on the VODs are always very unhappy when it's bad.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we don't know because nobody is monitoring this, right? We exist in a vacuum. It's just endlessness out there. I'm speaking into a microphone. I don't know if any of you are real. All right.
Dead internet theory. It's all bots.
Yeah, exactly. So, topic number 1 is news of the week. So, a couple of products have been announced, launched. Griffin, maybe you can fill in some more information here, but one of them is the Moondrop Quarks 2, which is a inexpensive DSP-based IEM. So it comes with a USB-C cable, and when it comes to Moondrop USB-C, that is always it with an asterisk that folks need to be wary, potentially, at least for now. But it does look like the measurements are quite good. And the price for this one it's very cheap, right?
It
Let me
is
know what
sub $20.
Yeah. So $20-ish. So I'm just going to pull up the graph on the screen here for you guys. This is from their marketing stuff. Looks quite good. Looks Hexa-esque. So for $20, that seems very, very good.
Yeah, I think the Hexa is actually probably a somewhat fair comparison.
We'll see. We have them on the way.
We do have them on the way. There should perhaps be a little bit of an asterisk with this measurement.
Well, 2 asterisks.
Well, what would you say the
The
asterisk?
target, the target is using the 5128 pinna.
Yes, so that was going to be the first thing I bring up, which is that this is actually Moondrop debuting their first, I guess, version of their first 5128 target curve for IEMs. And it seems like it's a little bit different than the VDSF they used prior. So the VDSF they used prior was the diffuse field head-related transfer function of the 4128 tilted by 1.4 decibels per octave downward. With a little bit of extra treble. This is 0.5 decibels per octave downslope, and then with a 7 decibel bass shelf on top.
0.5.
0.5.
So that equates to what in total?
I mean, in total, it would be 12 because it's a 7 decibel bass shelf because it's
right. Okay.
5 decibels and then 7 on top of that.
Okay.
It's fairly... So it's interesting in that the
like
aggregate bass energy is kind of similar to Harman in-ear, but the mids and treble are a little more on the reasonable side, which is cool to see. Obviously, I think you and I, Andrew, would rather they were using a different bass line than the 5128 DF. But I think, in terms of what they could reasonably do to improve their IEMs, I would say that looks pretty decent as far as a target response.
One thing I would want to point out is that the target response is one thing, and that obviously is not what I would advocate for, given it's using a specific pinna.
Mm-hmm.
But the Quarks seems to dip in a region that I personally know that I'm, sensitive to. Roughly, I mean, it's maybe a little higher. It's where I'm sensitive is a bit lower in frequency, but it's close, right?
So, there is a second asterisk that I want to talk to people about, and to do that, I would appreciate if you could bring up Mark's measurement.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let me do that right now.
Who is Mark?
Mark
Super
Bryan,
review.
Mr. Super.
Mr. Super.
Senor Super. Yeah. Oh my God, that's huge. Okay.
Bass.
So this is Mark's unit. He got in a Quarks 2. This is Mark's unit compensated to basically the equivalent of 5128 DF, and then what you see in the not very opaque dotted line is a 10 decibel downslope of the 5128 diffuse field. Now, if you swap over to the picture I sent you of the marketing trace on my site.
What?
I sent you another picture.
Oh my God. I don't think I have it.
It's
One
in
second.
my
You do.
Oh, there's a second one right next to it. There we go.
And I want to bring them up in comparison specifically for two things. So you mentioned that it seemed like there was a little bit of a dip in the 6K area.
Well, it's not exactly 6K. So for me, my issue is usually at like 6.1 kilohertz, and the dip here is a little higher than that. But I'm also wondering if potentially this is something that,
So go back to Mark's measurement.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is because I think what's happening here is there's a slight disconnect between the lower mid between the two, and the bass is weirdly like spot on between the two. And what I think is happening here is that because the Quarks form factor is a bullet shape, they were able to get quite a deep insertion into the 5128, a much deeper than would be typical of most IEMs.
Now, is Mark using the pinna?
No, Mark is just using a coupler. But
I know, but is he using
his
the pinna?
insertion.
Is he using the pinna, or is he using the extension?
He's just using a cylindrical coupler extension, normalizing the insertion at 8 kilohertz.
Okay.
It looks like to me that with the Quarks, Moondrop actually got the insertion perhaps even deeper than 8 kilohertz, which is why you see the.
But in reality, this is
energy
going
in
to
that
vary
6K
across.
region.
across people anyways, and I'm not
Right.
too like
It's
this.
just
This
what,
gets into what Blaine calls the spider milking.
yeah, but I just wanted to bring it up because you mentioned specifically that it looks more relaxed
Well,
in that region.
I'm more just hopeful that I can get a unit that is a little bit more relaxed in that region.
I mean, I hope so too. I
Because-
tend to prefer less there too. I'm just
Because
saying,
again, like
looking
this,
at the measurements, either of these, taking them
Yeah.
at face value in this region is probably not such a great idea.
well, and just because also the target is using a specific pinna, which is going to be brighter than what most people like, or
Also
brighter
very
than
good.
most people's ears. So a little brighter, right? So I don't think I know. I've mentioned this to Critical as well that like I think we got to stop using this specific pinna for it,
Mhm.
just because that's become the like default representation, and I feel like it's going to lead to things being generally brighter than people want. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you talk about how bright people want it, that's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying more like how bright it is relative to most people's ears.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I mean, actually, it's kind of funny. It's almost a little bit. I mean, there's a bit of harsh irony in that. What's is it 2.4 for Harman? For the treble shelf.
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 decibels for Harman 2018.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as preference is concerned, I mean it is kind of interesting in that regard. I mean, there's a lot of stuff where it's like maybe things will be okay by accident, you know. But using this pinna, I still feel is going to give. I don't think we should normalize or standardize the use of this pinna, which is currently that's the trajectory things are going in. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, so that's that.
Mhm.
We have one on the way.
Yes, we do.
Interesting.
Yep.
I'm curious because I'm just gonna pop.
I want to take the graph off screen.
Yeah, probably.
I'm curious about it because one of the issues that I have with a lot of these like ultra budget El Cheapo IEMs is that oftentimes the shell ergonomics are so bad. Oh, Blaine is talking and muted. Blaine is muted.
Oh. I think
Skill
I don't know
issue.
if you is supposed to be muted.
I'm using speech to text. Sorry, I can't
Oh.
type.
right.
Right.
Oh, right.
So no, what I was going to say is a lot of these El Cheapo IEMs tend to, for whatever reason, have shell ergonomics that are just horrific for me. And so oftentimes the sound that I get, they end up sitting further out. And
Yeah.
so it
So
changes the air
exacerbating
volume.
the problem. you
Yeah,
usually
exactly.
Have. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
especially for me, right? So I'm hopeful that this one can be something that is a little bit more acceptable for its ergonomics.
Yeah.
But the other
style
thing
tends to be pretty.
Yeah. So I'm
unproblematic.
encouraged. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is that as much as USB-C is an issue, Jesus Christ, sorry, I just looked over. As much as USB-C is often an issue, there is something convenient about something like this for on the go.
Mhm.
Like I really enjoy using the Dusk just with my phone with the DSP cable.
Right.
Not having to mess with any sort of dongles, not having to mess with. I don't need to use the Qtlex 5K as much as I love that thing. I don't need to
Yeah.
carry an extra thing with me. It's just a really convenient.
It is an extra thing. So yeah, just it being built into the cable and that being your
Yes.
full setup is.
It is quite
Definitely
nice.
fun.
That's
for
a whole thing in
$20,
$20, which I wish more companies had focused on is the like having
Yes.
a dongle ergonomically sucks.
Yeah,
Right,
so
like trying to
Yep.
put it in your pocket so that it's not putting strain on the cables and stuff. And there's been a couple ones like what was the one that was like MagSafe to the back of your phone and everything?
Cut T.
That's the one, CutST. Like that's great. Why don't more companies do kind of stuff like this? But yeah, having a dongle just ergonomically kind of sucks, and having just a straight up cable is a lot nicer. That being said, hopefully this doesn't have the same weird distortion issues that the FreeDSP on the Dusk had.
We'll have to see.
'cause, yeah, that'll suck if they've not fixed that.
Yeah.
Hopefully by now they've figured out what was causing that.
Yeah.
Well, the
And
last
then-
time we talked to Brian, which was not long ago, he said no.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
So probably it's not fixed.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
we'll see.
It's a really weird issue. And hopefully
Oh.
they, at some point, I mean, this can be done just with an app update, but hopefully they come up with some better way of inputting EQ config stuff. Because like having all of this stuff baked into a cable is so cool. That's fantastic. And I hope that more things go that way. But it needs a better app.
Yeah. So I think they did just update the Moondrop Link app. And it is now actually available on the Play Store. So you don't have to go through like the whole weird rigmarole of like downloading the APK individually and just like going through the trust me bro of that. But yeah, I haven't taken a look because I don't have an Android device, so I don't know what's changed.
All right, moving on. We have to keep this moving here.
Let's do it.
Empire Ears Triton is also one that, I mean, technically we knew about this before, but it is new.
I only found out about it a few days ago.
Okay, I knew about this before.
Oh, okay. Well, you get all the privileged big boy information.
But yes, let's say it's with DD bass, BAs, and bone conduction, which makes me sad.
Does it?
I actually don't know in this case, but I haven't enjoyed the bone conduction implementations.
You do not enjoy going to the bone zone?
I don't like that. No. I mean, technically, I don't know if that's the problem that I'm dealing with, but with many of the ones that had bone conduction implemented, there was this really weird resonance in the mids.
Yeah, it's like a springy.
Yeah, and I thought maybe this is just to do with, for me, I don't know.
No, I think it's intentional.
Yeah. But it does have extremely low impedance at 2.8 ohms at 1 kilohertz. The
2.8 very low. Yes, it's very low.
That's stupid.
This is one where cables might actually tangibly matter.
Yeah.
Well, not might, will probably. Yeah. I mean, like at that point, because it's going to be a reactive impedance because it's a fucking multi-driver IEM. 2.8. That's worse than a fucking Andromeda.
Yeah. So this is.
What were they thinking?
Part of me feels like this is also. So like, we always talk about like how cables. Okay, like it's not something that is worth caring about, but a lot of the people who are sort of cable proponents, their examples will be, oh yeah, but with this Empire Ears IEM that I use, or with this, I pick an IEM that is ultra low impedance.
This is fucking Kung Pao. The legend continues. We have built it wrong on purpose as a joke.
But so you get the idea, right? Like there is a case for cables for these types of products. So I think that is interesting to note. A lot of people don't realize that that's what's going on when they're swapping cables, and they think that that is like the smoking gun for cables matter, right? But it's that it's
not only that.
Impedance.
You're going to have to source meme a bit with these because very small changes in output impedance are going to change the frequency response of this IEM.
Do we know what the sensitivity, Griffin?
Off top, no, but I can.
I'm just like output impedance is one thing, but noise is always an issue with ultra sensitive IEMs, and that's why I am curious.
99 decibels at 1 kilohertz per milliwatt.
So that's not nearly as bad as the Andromeda.
No, I mean it's
in terms of sensitivity.
Like,
no.
So we don't need to worry as much about noise, but still output impedance.
Output impedance and cables.
Yeah.
Friend Skedra brought to CanJam London a cable A/B testing thing with some 3D printed things for IEMs. So like you connect two cables to the IEM and you can swap between which ones.
That's
running
cool.
It's actually kind of fun.
Cool. Yeah.
So with this one, early reports from people is that they like it better than the Raven. So take that for what it's worth. I haven't heard it, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Should be interesting. It looks fantastic from the photos. I wonder if I can pull photos up. Do you have any photos?
It's not super easy to get them from the site. Let me go ahead and
I have one here.
Live stream assets.
Let me just.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of like the whole like multicolor rainbow vomit thing going on that a lot
I'm
of
generally
IEMs
not,
have.
but if I'm going to go with something that is like this absurdly bright, I kind of like the colors that they chose.
Yeah.
It's one of those resin pour kind of looks, right?
Yeah,
Like Ross's
usual-
cups.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that. I always prefer the way that you know, like for me, everything should just look, you know, muted and black,
Just black,
and gray.
matte black,
just,
everything.
Just matte black, everything, just like my soul.
Can't say I disagree there. Yeah.
Actually, I really like the sort of off-white and beige colored stuff too.
Me too. That's why I liked
yeah.
the gate unit that I reviewed so much. A lot of people don't like how that IEM looks, which I learned after publishing the review. But I really liked it because of the white and the way it pairs with coffee tips. It looks very clean.
Yeah. Moving on, we can get to the topic of the week, which is, in your guys' opinion, what is the worst noob trap in audio?
Who wants to go
Impedance.
first? Oh, interesting.
So not like, you know, buying snake oil stuff, but
Mhm.
so many times when you look at like, and by this I'm meaning people who are really quite new to it, you see people going like, assuming that higher impedance means better. That, or A, it's going to be harder to drive outright, which is always not always the case at all. In fact, very often not, now that planars are more of a thing. And also just they assume that high impedance means better. That's something which
Well, it
I've
means
seen
lower
a
moving
lot.
mass, all else equal.
Yeah, but like, have you seen Bayard? So it's that's something which I've seen a lot, and people have to sort of respond to and explain that neither of those things are the case, and that actually the impedance of the headphone is, other than just, you know, that plus sensitivity to work out how hard it is to drive, it's almost irrelevant. Like, it shouldn't be a deciding factor in whether or not you're going to buy or like a headphone.
Yeah. Dank pods contributed a lot to the kind of misattribution of impedance, either as a quality of the headphone itself or like the necessity of needing an amp.
All right, somebody says they can hear a clothes dryer.
Yeah, that's me.
God damn it.
See, I just don't dry my clothes when I have a stream going.
It's very
Well, the listener's muted, so if there's something there, it's probably still me because I've got an AC on full blast a few meters away. I can turn my noise cancellation up though. So, okay.
Griffin, you should noise gate yourself.
I don't have a way to do it in Mac that I can find.
Rip. Okay.
Rip.
So who wants to go next? Or Cameron, did you have more on impedance?
No, that's basically it. It's like, just don't pay attention to it, effectively. It's not actually an important fact. It doesn't tell you whether a headphone's going to sound good. It doesn't tell you anything about the tuning. It doesn't actually tell you how hard it is to drive.
2.8 ohms.
Unless it's 2.8 ohms, in which case maybe
it.
you should worry about it. But other than that, higher impedance is not better, and also doesn't indicate how hard it is to drive.
Hi, T. Mr. Super. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Super.
What about you, Blaine? What would be your worst noob trap in audio?
Oh, source scare. No question. Like, it is actually absurd. Okay, no, Cameron, this one, we're going to fight later, but this one is one you'll agree with. I'm putting the fighting in the designated fighting area, just like in Portland. I see people on the internet being like, oh, hey, you know, I have $300 and I want to get a Magni and Modi. What headphones should I pair with them?
Oh, yeah,
that's
don't
stupid.
do that.
Yeah, that's really.
You see that like to a ludicrous extent in the sane budget segment, right? Like, and the people who pay $300, $500, which is a lot, but it's still not absolutely insane. And then people will spend half or more of their budget on source gear because, oh, well, I don't want something that's cheap or won't be sufficient to drive my new audiophile headphones.
So I think a part of that has to come from this idea of like, and maybe it's to do with the demographic, but like doing a setup, you know what I mean? Like having a complete system, right? And plugging bits into other bits and things like that. And people like that about things, you know, like setting a thing up. Even if it doesn't.
I think that you could probably sell noobs, like, in addition to like passive pre's and stuff, I think you could add a box that just had a nonsense name and they would still buy it. just to add to the stack.
Macintosh sells a box with their logo on it, which costs like $1,500.
Jesus.
So
is it just for like making your stack symmetrical?
No, it's just literally it's a box with their logo that lights up. That's it.
Well,
it does not do anything.
I think I know why they would do that. So like imagine you have a DAC and 2 mono blocks. Now you have an asymmetrical stack, so then you buy the box.
Yeah,
and now you have 2 symmetrical stacks.
Oh god. So there's a couple people in chat saying like just buy the JDS lab stack and stuff. I would sort of siding with Blaine here. Don't even do that. The point is that when you are not spending like crazy money on headphones and stuff, you should be spending almost all of the money on headphones. You can get the FIO KA, it's either 11 or 13, the like new dongle thing, which is pretty powerful, sounds good, measures great, and it's $30.
Most
do not buy anything more than that until you are
laptops will have, you know, these days decent outputs. Not all, but like say MacBooks, right? They have them.
Mac audio is apparently pretty decent, but other than that, it's a mixed bag.
For, you know, like desktops,
I will say, I think it's less mixed than people give it credit for. Like, not to say that Realtek codecs are good. They're
very much not. They're very that's the exception, I would say.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it varies a lot. But outside of cases where there's like actual noise coupling to the output, I think people are way over worried about it. Like I see people worried about output impedance, and then they have like an HD600.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, there's a 75 ohm output impedance. If it gets loud enough, don't fucking worry.
No, but I mean, like, I don't know. I understand situations where people are like, I'm gonna get the headphone, and then later on, you know, get a something, right? Like, you know, because for them doing that, even if the difference is not substantial, it might just be a matter of either confidence or convenience, right? Because for a lot of people, they don't know what's actually happening with their onboard thing or whether that's good enough, right? So it's like, well, at the very least, I can remove that as a potential factor.
So Mr. Super makes a good point. Getting a volume knob is a fine reason to buy a desktop. Yeah, I agree. There is no reason to buy a desktop DAC, though.
Or even if you like, okay, so I feel a little differently on the sort of internal audio thing. Like I've had, even on current gen stuff, both desktop and laptops, I've had a real mixed bag with just the quality of audio out of those. But the point is that you can get it's not the JA11, the KA11, or might be KA13. It's like a balanced 4.4 millimeter dongle or something. You can get that, or just an Apple dongle for like $10 to $30. And that's fine. Like as a DAC, that is fine. You don't need to go past that until you are, you know, the money is not better spent on your headphones. And unless you are spending, I would say, over $1,000, your money is better spent on headphones for sure. Totally understand.
Honestly, the market has a hole for like a $50 DAC amp with a big knob for your desk.
It's kind of slim.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, because I always want to recommend people something. It's like, well, I don't want to recommend they get like a Fulla because that's borderline a dongle and also expensive. I don't want to say, oh, just get JDS stuff. That's like $200. So, yeah.
Well, you don't need to get the whole thing. The JDS Atom is like 100, right?
Well, yeah, but it's still like, you could totally make a much lower power. Just like run it off USB rails, or maybe just have a simple boost converter or like a inverting converter for the negative rail, and then you're just fine. It'll be like 3 volts RMS output. That's plenty for most stuff. How
much is the KA13? So the KA13 from FIO, not just chilling FIO stuff. I just happen to have these here at the moment. That's another dongle, which again measures great and stuff, and it's got hardware volume controls on it. So you don't need to just rely on Windows audio or Mac audio, which is a good point.
I will say, rocker volume controls do kind of suck.
They're not as good as a knob, but they're leagues ahead of
still
relying
useful
on the Windows slider. Because the problem with the Windows thing is there have been various instances where people have nearly blown their ears out by something setting the volume up high all of a sudden, and if that's your volume control, then ouch. But yeah, like realistically, MJ Karthik in chat saying, but 100% just buy an easy to drive entry level headphones. It's not even that, and I think we'll talk about this in a minute. Most people massively overestimate how much power they actually need. most headphones really don't need that much power, and the amps that are available today are so overpowered that actually it's just completely detrimental.
Ships
So I'm
passing
sure
in the
we'll talk
night.
about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, I think.
My
That's one of the topics.
my biggest noob trap comment is soundstage, but not necessarily for the reasons we talked about in the last stream. Not exclusively. I think that the biggest trap is
The dead horse will be beaten until it is glue.
No. I actually think that it's more to do with gaming headsets and gaming headphones. Like there's the audiophile side of it, right? And that's
we did talk about that quite a bit last
yeah,
week.
but
Yeah.
we did as well. But to me, it's like it's that, because for a lot of people, especially for the people who are not in the niche of the niche, that is a thing that they are trying to, they think that there's going to be some competitive advantage conferred, and that's just not the case. So that is literally a noob trap.
I would agree with that.
I would have said the same thing for a different reason. Like soundstage is a noob trap because it's one of the things that's hardest to tell someone who hasn't experienced what is possible that they shouldn't care about it. Like it takes, they have to experience it themselves and not be a noob anymore to get out of the noob trap of thinking that soundstage will be the most important thing or one of the most important things.
I mean, like you see that though all the way up, like it's not just the people who are totally uninitiated. We saw it in, recent discussions for people who've dedicated a lot of time to this.
Well, at that point, I wouldn't call them noobs anymore, and I wouldn't call them victim to a noob trap. I would say they found something that they appreciate about a presentation, and that's just, their preference. But for a lot of people,
I'm not talking about that person. I'm saying that the persuasiveness generally of the soundstage effect is something that a lot of people on first listen will find compelling. But that is something we talked about in the last stream.
Super Review makes a good point, saying bass is the biggest noob trap.
That's
a good one.
It is a good one.
I just
want to shout out here. Walco says SMSL D6S plus X Duo TA66 plus DT990 Black Special Edition 250 ohms modded.
I know
the DT990 was one of the most preferred headphones.
Now, I would say research. It probably depends on what the mod is. Maybe I'm curious what the mod is.
The mod is you take the driver out and you put a different driver in, and then you take the pads off and put different pads on.
I actually think with different pads,
headphone.
No, I actually think with different pads it could be all right, right? Like if it's a pad mod, or maybe even like some people are putting on like filters in front.
So
that might be, like tame the treble a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about those drivers that even when you swap out a crap load of pads or do different things to the damping,
it's so weird watching Blaine just like speak.
It's still it still has a ton of treble, even if you do some stuff to it. So I would be interested to know what the mods are. Especially if it's like a passive filter or something like that. But
Super
Damon James says, Solder Dude to DIY audio.
Hey, nice. Super Damon James says, hey, can one of you convince Focal or a reseller to sell their new headphones line on Amazon in the US? Just buy it from headphones.com because you get a 365-day return policy. Well, what do you do?
Better than
we
Amazon
also ship quite quickly.
Yes.
Also faster than Amazon.
Yes, and we also now have we're going to be shipping out of somewhere in the US more central.
Well, we already are, but
we already are shipping from there.
Moving that. Yeah, we're currently shipping from Auburn, I think.
Yeah.
For some reason. Got it.
But we are shipping from the US. But we're shipping faster in the US.
Yes.
MQA.
Yeah. Also, I need medical attention, so buy it from headphones.com so that they can pay for me.
Oh my god. Okay.
Oh dear. I think MQA was. Sorry, I was going to address this one. Yeah, MQA was a noob trap, and I think unfortunately it was getting somewhat successful at it. Luckily, I think nowadays most of the time you see someone ask about it, many people jump in and say, "No, don't worry about that."
Well, I don't know how much of it depends on the audience, I suppose, right? Because like on the one hand, we could say like there's these traps for people who are very much already, they have the brainworms, they're in the audiophile world, and they are, going to be compelled by all kinds of things. And that is probably, those things are probably different things if you're considering the audience as like the truly, let's say more based audio enjoyers who just get in and get out. They don't have, the full brainworms. They've just dipped their toes in, and the traps for them are probably
the ones that won, I think, is the
exactly. Yeah. They might be a bit different for them, but so in that sense, I wonder, like, MQA, like how much was the average person really persuaded by that? It's a little bit like, the high res audio sticker on the box. Like, did some people maybe cared, but most people didn't? I don't know.
That one I think probably was less of an issue, just because it didn't really insinuate anything that was like that marketing worthy. Like, it was kind of a pretty thing to have, but it ended up just being on everything. Yeah. And I never really saw people like talking about or worrying about that unless they were literally memeing about it. Whereas stuff like MQA, I did see a lot of people, even on like sort of less audio central forums, like, Linus Tech Tips or whatever, asking like, oh, I'm looking for this, but I want to make sure I get one that has MQA support.
Yeah, that is. I want to make sure it can do this MQA thing.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. That was the thing that I saw.
I think it was a noob trap for a while.
Fair.
MRS has an interesting one. Another new trap: your music sucks, and you can't make it sound like 3D with more expensive gear. And at first I was like, okay, that's a little harsh. But then he elaborated, I got into this hobby because I thought my previous headphone was clipping because of its limitations. Turns out that the clipping was in the recording I was listening to.
Was it Metallica's Death Magnetic?
Ugh.
It's one of the worst recorded albums.
There is a lot of music that is like, Loudness Wars is a problem. Yeah, in and of itself.
In general, if you listen to metal, expect there to be clipping somewhere.
Yeah. I want to hear Griffin's noob trap.
It's Soundstage. You took it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your
thief. Well, you can steal Joel's then.
What was Joel's?
Lossless audio.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. Because, and I will elaborate. I don't know if this is Joel's point, but the way I would go with this is to say that one of the issues that one of the most common things is, I don't need to care about headphones, better headphones, because I'm not listening to lossless audio. I'm only listening to Spotify. So I'm just going to not bother to care about getting the good stuff. My crappy whatever is good enough. And on the one hand,
I care about the cyanide content of this wine. After all, I'm only using a lead pewter glass or lead pewter chalice.
We're not doing this again.
No, I like it. But you get the idea, and this is something that's a narrative that gets perpetuated over and over again on major channels. Is something we regularly roast MKBHD here, but like that was something that he said in one of his headphone reviews, that like, I am not listening to lossless audio, so I don't need to, so it's fine. I don't need to, get whatever XYZ. And I just remember thinking like, okay, it's true that you don't need to get into the audiophile space, but not because you're not listening to lossless, right? Like it's not like there isn't a tangible benefit. 320 Spotify is fine, and you notice those benefits going from something that has a horrible frequency response to something that's good.
I have a little bit of a not counterpoint to this, because I totally agree that it was a noob trap for a long time, but now Tidal's cheaper than Spotify.
Yeah, that's why I've switched over to Tidal. Is it still does it still have issues with the exclusive mode?
No, it's fine.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But no, I totally agree. It was in the past. Tidal cutting that.
Or was it like not playing at 16 bits? It was like 15.
I can't remember exactly what it was doing, but it was like altering stuff in some weird way. Scott Pledge has got an interesting one, which is only chasing measurements is another noob trap. I'm guessing that's more in relation
honestly,
to
that's a good answer.
Yeah, but we flogged that one. That horse isn't even glue anymore. It's just a thin veneer.
Yeah. For anyone that is coming to, actually, I don't know for sure if we are doing it there, but hopefully we might be. If anyone's coming to CanJam SoCal, myself, Blaine, and Oratory often do a talk called Myths About Measurements, which
I
goes
actually
into
have a
little
new
bit more
talk that I
detail
want to do.
That might be a video at some point.
Oh, what's the
Yeah, I'm working
hopefully,
on it.
Blaine.
I'm working on it. I actually am working on it. It's hard to write a script with one hand.
That's fair.
That's why. That's actually why I've been using voice to text. I've been trying to learn it.
Blaine,
Yeah.
what is your new talk going to be about?
Well, this is contingent on Headphone approving it, but I want to do a talk about basically current headphone measurements suck and they all need to change.
Blessed.
Yeah.
Based.
Oh, is
Yeah,
this where
so
you would
it's,
propose fields with?
Among other things.
Sure. Okay.
So this would basically be a big piece on everything we currently do is equivalent to when we just measured a loudspeaker in room with pink noise.
You mean like for single line against single line?
Among
Or-
other things.
Yeah.
Blaine is trying to take us out of the oscilloscope era.
Yeah. We have a comment in chat which is wrong, so I just want to call this out just because I think that Matthew Hilty is incorrect and he may be misinforming others. He says 2 DACs that can help with clipping are the Wandla and the Benchmark DAC. That is only for intersample clipping, but a lot of music has clipping recorded right into it. You cannot fix that.
Well, okay, so I should say, yeah, it depends, as Blaine said, it depends on the type of clipping. Intersample clipping, which means that the track is technically clipped, but a DAC like the Wandler, which has mitigation for that, will reconstruct it properly. With metal and stuff, though, it's not the intersample stuff that's the problem. It's got, a consistent period of time, which is just gone. It's just completely clipped. And that intersample overs can't fix. The information is just completely lost. So
you could use like a weird machine learning algorithm, but it would probably sound fucked.
Yeah,
there are like plugins
that.
and things you can do, but it's mostly for sort of vocal reconstruction. Trying to reconstruct a complex music track is a little bit more tricky. But yeah, ideally, music would just be mastered with a little bit more headroom, and it wouldn't be a problem. But unfortunately, it is. But I would still say that having mitigation for intersample overs clipping is still important, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't solve that problem, unfortunately.
It should also be noted that digitally adjusting the volume down also works.
Yeah.
HeartU says, late to mention, but Windows volume suddenly maxing blew my THX 789.
Yeah, don't rely on Windows volume if you can avoid it.
It ain't trustworthy, but also that segues into something we're going to be talking about later.
Before that, though, topic number 2 is, or 3, I don't know where we're at now, the hardcore snake oil, and why we just choose to act like it doesn't exist. So, Blaine, if you would like
I just forget.
So maybe we can
when you say what sort of stuff is it? I mean, I think the answer generally is just going to be that we don't think about it all that much, but which things are we sort of forgetting?
So when I pitched this topic, I was like, there's stuff where when people come into this hobby, they're just like, oh my God, what the fuck is that shit? And then we're
we can go through Telos and Synergistic Research's websites and talk about their stuff.
Well, exactly. But it's not just them. It's not just them. Like, cables, like Abyss is also JPS, and JPS sells $500 to a foot cable. There's maybe $500 to a meter. It doesn't really matter that much, but like things like this are just everywhere in this hobby. Like the number of hi-fi stores, which I know we don't think about much because we work for a web store, but if you go into them, they'll just sell you a little wooden ornament that they say cancels room modes. Like we just sort of filter it out of our brains.
Go to Synergistic Research's website and search for acoustic dots. And
then
I think
another one we posted that before.
Another one which is a little more ridiculous is the Telos Quantum sticker. I don't think we need to explain why that's bullshit.
All you needed to say was sticker.
Yes. It is a $300 sheet of stickers, but you get a nice metal warranty card for your stickers. So,
is the warranty card also adhesive?
God
wow, it's a 10-pack of these acoustic dots is $300.
Are those like the little like felt dots that go under like a table or a chair's legs or something?
No, they have. How dare you? They've got a little bit of metal in between them.
Yeah, it's like a little copper.
Yeah, you put them on the walls and it fixes the acoustics of the room.
So what's crazy to me is that they have these sort of testimonial things.
Communion wafers.
It's like taking your system and bringing out the best in it.
Audiophile communion wafers.
I mean, how this is a badge
I've
of
got
shame
Yeah,
for each of
honestly, every time if I go to one of these product pages and I see like a publication or someone that has given these a positive review, I just immediately write off that person or
Yeah.
publication's opinions
I mean, look,
about
in that-
anything.
It's
forever.
also really unethical because look at how many IEMs chairs are haunting them. Those
Yeah.
are ghosts.
No, we've done this bit before, but I think that
Yeah, I think so.
the question at hand is more, why do we choose to sort of ignore the existence of some of this stuff? And,
I mean, why do we
basically,
just honestly forget?
why do we tolerate it? I suppose because it is in some cases so egregious that it is something that should be regularly called out. Because I suppose the question it really is like, I don't imagine that most people are taken in by it, but certainly a portion of people are, right? And
a larger portion, I think, are alienated by the fact that they see someone selling a $200 fuse, and
Yeah.
everyone else is like, "Oh yeah, that's just the $200 fuse seller. He's obviously lying, but you get used to him."
Yeah. I think. I mean, the answer is as Blaine said, we just sort of genuinely forget because it's not the sort of thing which we keep up with the new releases of the latest pink fuse and stuff on. It's not really something we're interested in. But also, it's not the kind of stuff which those manufacturers are likely to send to us to test. I've had manufacturers reach out to me on a couple occasions asking like if I'd like to do a review of stuff, and then when they like see my website and see that I measure stuff, no more communication. That's
we
it.
are risky reviewers in that sense.
Yes.
Oh my god,
anybody
Somafunk
trying to
reminds
snake
me of
oil-
one that
snake oil.
I totally forgot. Ground boxes.
Oh my god, the ground boxes. Yes, we've got to
boxes
talk
are
about
my
ground
favorite.
Because ground boxes are one where like quantum
When Blaine
stickers and stuff
rubs his hands together
it's-
like this, it's pure joy.
No, but the thing with
Sorry.
ground boxes is that it's just sensible sounding enough to make sense to a lot of people. Whereas stuff like quantum stickers is just so ridiculous, and acoustic dots, if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, you can probably work out that that's not how physics works. But grounding boxes, most people genuinely won't understand why that's not a thing. And so those ones are a little bit, I would say, more dangerous. And in some cases, literally dangerous, because people will unground their entire system and remove the safety aspect of that. It's not just about sound quality. It's having a ground is an important safety thing that it's required in a lot of countries. And in fact, if you use one of these, you may be invalidating your house insurance. So that's something to think about.
But you are gaining crystals.
Yes,
very true.
These I have some photos of. Hang on, I'm going to send some of these to Resolve because I have some photos of the internals of these.
The intangible benefits of some of this stuff can't be described because they're intangible.
No, they tangibly make things worse because.
No, I know. I'm just saying the benefits that you might get out of this, right?
Yeah. So Resolve, I'm going to quickly send you a link, and so if you
Scott
search
Pledger said
N-Track,
something interesting.
He said ENTREQ.
Scott said his favorite thing about audiophile snake oil is that he's not convinced that people selling it don't actually believe in what they're selling.
They don't.
We've had a lot of like dialogue on this on the show, and I personally think it's about 80-20 between true believers and people who are just cynical.
Yeah, no, I would say it might even be more true believers. Like generally, the people who are selling the snake oil are, in my opinion, believing in what they're selling. It's
really.
Just, in my opinion, yeah, it's way more that than.
Now, are you talking about like the creators?
We had a topic about this, which was like crazy or lying or something. I remember we talked about
we
this
did
like
speak about
a change ago.
Yeah. So these grounding boxes, basically, if you search N-Track, ENTREQ, I just want to see your reaction to like the listings and prices.
I mean, I have
ENTREQ. Okay.
I put it on the
yeah.
stream.
Or Blaine, do you want to explain what these are?
Well, okay, so ground in an electrical system is sort of an arbitrary reference point for low voltage. The normal way you get ground is you have a wire that is running ultimately to the ground. these folks have apparently decided that the Earth itself is too contaminated for their pure audio systems, and so they have decided to create a new ground in the form of a box full of rocks, earth, loam, occasionally pieces of metal, as you can see there.
Cameron,
which they
am I looking
then-
at the right thing here?
You are, I think.
The
I think
Sound
so.
of Nature and Trek
Yes.
ground boxes. Okay,
Wow.
Yeah, that's the one.
sorry. Continue. Blaine.
So the premise here is that you pull all of the ground connections from all of the other, like all the normal returns to ground that you would have, and instead of having them all meet up at the potential of, the Earth by your house, they meet up at the potential of these
0 volts.
spots. Which can work. I mean, it just means that you've now basically floated your entire system. Like, it's not going to immediately not work. It just means that you no longer have protective Earth, because now instead of sinking any currents to ground, you're sinking them to a box.
Yes. And the important part about that is that it's not just a case of, having a different ground reference. It's that what you have the Earth and all of, everything around your sort of grounding rod in your house for things to drain to, both for safety in the event of like a short circuit or something, but also just for like draining noise effectively. So I've tested a couple of these ground boxes now, actually. And when you use them, because you are leaving everything floating, effectively what happens is that all of that sort of collected stuff has nowhere to go to, and your whole grounding system acts as like an antenna. So you just get loads more noise. It makes things worse. It doesn't make things better. It's actively detrimental.
There are cases where lifting a ground makes sense. There's basically no case where lifting a ground and then connecting that wire to a new box makes any sense at all.
Like if you have grounding problems, which can exist in certain places, you would be better off just like directly connecting everything together, just with a wire.
Isolation transformers or a number of other things.
A number of other actual solutions which are actually used in various industrial applications for valid reasons. Putting a box of dirt, which costs you $5,000, is not going to help.
I mean, they could have at least done the Pirates of the Caribbean reference and made it a jar of dirt. Is that old? I think that movie came out before several of our viewers were born.
Probably, yeah.
Scott Pledger says, I will say I think that maybe we don't call this out as often as we should, because I think so many creators and vendors do seem to truly believe. Well, yeah, but I mean, like, they're insane. So, I'm more wondering about why those of us who aren't insane don't call it out.
I just don't want to waste time making videos about it.
I think that's definitely true.
Fair.
But the question that I want to push back on here is like
snake soil.
Snake soil.
We should sell that.
That's really good.
But I would question whether or not the people selling this genuinely believe it.
I think most of them do. Like having met people at.
Okay, hold on. The
boxes?
people who are in certain instances, I would grant that people who are making this stuff might genuinely believe that that's going to make a difference. But what about dealers?
I think it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. It probably does turn more towards cynical unbelievers when it's dealers and their money on.
Oftentimes, I don't think they care. I think they're just like, here's the thing I can sell.
Yeah.
And,
it's sales,
and there's also
right? And a lot of these people are going to just sell stuff. That is their job, either because they are the manufacturer, even if they don't believe it, or they are the dealer. And in any case, that is their job, to sell you stuff. Doesn't really matter if they believe it. And so a lot of them are going to, tell you that they believe it, even if they themselves don't.
Yes.
And there's also
imagine that a lot of
where the owner of a dealer believes it, but the salespeople don't. Like,
but,
I mean,
so here's the
our
thing,
guy
though.
Alan. He used to work at a very snake oily place.
Yeah. This is why we should sell shirts that say we also sell snake oil.
I still believe that that's
It doesn't have to be a shirt, but it could be merch of some kind. Yeah.
Joel asks, isn't headphones.com an example of a dealer that sells snake oil products? Yes, and I think we should sell more of them to the people who want to buy that sort of thing. But also that as content creators, we should be like, this is snake oil.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what we did. Like, listen, more cables. Headphones.com sells cables. No one's
Expensive
telling you that
cables.
they sound better.
Sure.
How much are they?
$100.
$100.
$100. That's not an expensive cable.
Like,
Hold
that's
on, though,
really
hold on.
expensive for a headphone cable. I know
Yes,
that's
no,
not an
I know, but like
expensive cable, but
what I'm saying is like
they make a difference. We're saying that these are just like reasonable
they're just nice
cables that are ergonomically solid, right? Like That's not snake oil, right? Snake oil is
It's
like $10,000 amps and DACs.
Well, we do
Sorry,
sell
yeah,
like
pretty-
we sell the jitterbug, right? That's basically snake oil.
Do we? Oh man,
I've never tested that.
That's
I
fine.
mean, like, yeah, because I've always used for cables and stuff the sort of analogy of putting nice alloys on your car. It doesn't make it go faster, doesn't improve performance. It just makes you smile a bit when you get in. It just looks nice.
Yeah.
I've spent a fair bit of money on headphone cables and stuff, not because it makes it sound better. It doesn't. It's just if I really like these headphones and I wear them a lot, it's nice to have a nice, soft, good-looking cable, and I'm happy to pay a bit of money for it. It's just for
Do you
aesthetics,
have
and that, I
spinning
think, is a valid
rims?
reason. No.
But
Okay,
some people do.
I'm gonna say that we've touched on this topic plenty of times. We should probably move on to the next
Yes.
one.
Okay.
Indeed.
Because the next one is one that I think is going to be fun for Blaine.
So the next one is there such a thing as bad taste in headphones / audio generally? So the thing that set off this topic is Blaine looking more deeply into Class 2 listeners, and the conclusion is that they deserve
Euthanasia.
You may
well,
want to
you put they
what
deserve
a class
being sent to the wall, but like massive bass heads, and hilariously enough, is not the most bass head class. There's apparently a phantom class of listeners that is even more bass head than that, and that is Taryn.
All of this in relation to the segmentation paper. Cross that one off your bingo.
That's going. Yeah.
But yes, the breakdown of what people preferred between the classes, like in terms of most preferred by headphones, the first and second, as the first and third classes basically correlate with each other, but class 2 is just fucking random.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. Like it is completely uncorrelated with the other one.
Random? You mean the clustering itself is random? It's just like you had to take a wider.
Their individual headphone preferences.
Oh,
like
yeah, in relation to the rest of the listeners.
But that kind of makes sense though. Like if they are most persuaded predominantly by bass level, meaning like
well, but we know that normal listeners are also very persuaded by bass level.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying they are more likely to ignore everything else because that's the thing that they care about the most. Like I was even saying this not that long ago to Griffin that like there's in relation to actually the Grell phone, there are so many issues with it in the rest of the response, like above 1 kilohertz, right? But there are bound to be people who aren't persuaded by the badness of that for what they perceive to be the goodness of the low frequency, the excess low frequency stuff that they like. If that makes sense. So maybe this is just another indication of that like it, I mean, like the cascade exists, right? Like if it didn't have that absurd bass thing, it would be horrific to everybody, you would think, right? But no, it has this massive bass thing, and that's what is the thing that
Well, to get us back on topic, can people just have bad taste?
So Super Review says something, I think it's why it's worth defining bad taste. The problem with deciding that people can have objectively bad taste is that if you define bad taste objectively, it will turn out that your taste is in fact bad. Mine certainly is. What we mean is a little bit, or what I meant is a little bit more specific. It's weird to me that there are some people whose preferences just don't match with the overwhelming majority of people. Like for almost everything else, there's a pretty clear correlation. There are outliers, right? There's an outlier preference for something or dislike for something. But this subgroup of people just have almost no correlation whatsoever with like 85 or 82% of the population.
Are you wondering if at a certain point an outlier is significantly outliery enough that that we could safely attribute to them bad taste?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like food, right? Like there's a lot of taste preferences in food, but if someone says, I hate the taste of salt and love the taste of feces, that's not like taste variation. That's someone who has something wrong with them, right?
I mean, I know.
I guess what would the analog to that in audio be?
Well, that's what I'm thinking with the segment 2 people, right? Like
Delta earbuds.
Well, no,
Is there-
segment
are
two
there
would
people
be
that-
like Meze 99 classics.
Okay, so like Daniel Berry says, I like my ER2 SR more than the ER2 XR and the Noir. Would I be an outlier? Yes, you would be in segment 3, which is the same segment I'm in and is the bass slit segment.
That's not like
But-
a major outlier. There's a
There's a strong correlation between what segment 3 likes and what segment 1, which is basically
Right. So there's a
everyone,
case
is like
that it's
60
not as
some odd
much.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that there's less preference towards bass. But
segment
then
2
there's
is the
this
weird one.
weird. Segment 2 is the one that I don't think there exists any meaningful correlation between what they prefer and what they hate and what anybody else prefers or hates. And that's
they're
surreal.
not- They're not just like random number generators, though. They do still clearly have a preference for like.
So
For
that actually brings me to what I wanted to talk about in this section, which was that more so than bad taste, I think it's a lot easier to classify people in terms of consistent and inconsistent taste.
Yes.
Like I think the class 2 listeners are also guilty of just wildly inconsistent taste.
Mhm. Well,
I'm
but
actually not sure.
I actually think that's again because they are consistent for one thing, but inconsistent for everything else.
Right. But yeah, that's just them. I think there's also just plenty of people out there for whom their taste is not consistent. And like that kind of brings it to less about class segmentation and more like potentially trained versus untrained, though I'm sure that's not really the where I would want to draw that line, because I mean, untrained listeners can still have consistent preferences. Yeah, I don't know. I would never like go up to someone to their face and tell them they have bad taste unless it was Blaine.
But you would silently and privately judge them for it.
Well, sure, but I mean, yeah, because I'm a respectful person. I'll be nice to their face and then say, "Oh no, that thing is terrible."
Yeah, because Blaine needs to be made fun of, and that is on.
Blaine absolutely needs to be made fun of in person, in front of his face, as well as behind closed doors.
Yes.
But I will tell someone like, you know, I don't get a sense that your taste is very consistent, which I feel like one is less damning, because like some people just like more things, and can like more things. But it is kind of harder to have a conversation about sound quality with that person.
But hold on. So
someone in chat is asking if we're engaging in argumentum ad populum.
Just one second. Your demarcation here is that bad taste entails inconsistent taste.
For me, yeah, that's generally more damning.
You're just doing the trained listener, untrained listener dichotomy
but the difference,
there.
I think
it's
what
less
Blaine
about them being trained, though, because like there's still plenty of people who don't really know much about identifying frequencies that I've found have consistent taste.
Well, I mean, those people would probably also succeed if they did do how to listen, though. Like that would imply that they are fairly.
I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't really.
Even if not right away, eventually they would.
There's sort of two ways that you can define bad. One being sort of what Blaine was hinting at, which is that you know the things that they consistently or inconsistently, doesn't really matter, like/dislike, are so far out from what the vast majority of the population likes/dislikes that you can't argue that their takes are statistically representative of almost anyone else. How far you have to go to get that and how you'd even model it, I don't know. But there's definitely people where that's the case. You know, there's people that not meaning to shit on it, but there's people that said that, you know, the Grell OAE one was the best thing that they heard at Munich and stuff. And like that's not going to be statistically representative of the vast majority of people. But then there are also people where, like, you know, there's people that I talk to a lot and stuff who, even though I know my tastes are different from them, I can like listen to something and I know whether they'll like it or not, because I know what the sort of differences in our preferences or what we hear are. And so even if we don't always share the same opinion, you can model and know what they're going to say about something and be pretty consistent about it. And then there's other people where you just go, I don't even understand what you're hearing or how you're interpreting things, because you say like, this is too warm, this is too bright, and I felt completely the opposite. So does everyone else.
Yeah.
Usually those people, if you look at their track record, will just be all over the place in terms of what they
and
like
some of them are
dislike.
reviewers.
And usually be, well, a lot of them, yeah. And, you know, they'll generally also not be particularly good at articulating what the problem is.
So
So
I
that kind of touches on what Blaine said about them
Yeah,
likely being in the, I guess, untrained class even without testing them.
I want to bring up two things here. One is a quote from actually somebody advocating for the Grell phone on Headphone, which I thought was one of the funniest quotes that I've read, which is that something to the effect of, unless we're talking about broken down bridges or rotten meat, good or bad are good and bad are subjective terms.
Well, I mean, rotten meat is also
Rotten,
subjective.
Yeah, actually, technically.
Like, Surströmming exists.
Yes.
Hakarl exists.
Yes. Anyways, I thought that was quite funny. But it does raise a kind of, like, I can imagine there are people who are going to push back against the idea that goodness and badness are defined by statistical outliers. And instead might say that on the one hand, everything is subjective, therefore everything could potentially be good, and then there is no such thing as bad taste. On the other hand, they might push back and just give the more typical I know best complex, which is to say that all of these, reviewers or all these people, they don't have good taste in music. They don't know what good is, and only I know what best is. And so therefore everybody has bad taste except for me. Or, people who like the same things that I do, right? Which is a fairly common position for a lot of people in audio to have, even if they won't openly admit it.
I mean, I kind of grapple with the question of if we, like, objectively, there's a group of people whose preferences in no way correlate, not even inversely. Like, they just don't correlate with the average, and they do so consistently. But I struggle with calling it bad taste because I'm like, is this the equivalent of, well, Pika, right? Is this the equivalent of people who eat rocks and styrofoam? Or is this the equivalent of people who eat stinky cheese?
I'm sorry.
Are you not aware of that? That's a mental disorder where you eat non-food.
Yeah. It's like,
so you can eat like a camera.
Toilet paper. Or like,
well,
have you never seen, was it My Strange Addiction?
What the hell?
It's a very common topic.
Oh my God. Okay. I learned a thing today. All right.
Yeah. Hair, etc. Like there's
that can't be good
a lot
for you,
of permutation. No, it isn't. It's less bad than you would think because a lot of stuff we can't digest, but it doesn't actually poison us. Sure. But it's still not a good idea.
Guy that over the course of something like 15 years ate an entire plane.
Yeah, but that was based.
It was based on very small pieces at a time over the course of like 15
How
or
is
20
that
years
even possible? Would you not get like metal poisoning or?
God only knows. There was another guy
that guy was a circus performer, to be fair.
Right. Okay.
Although he also had Pika, really clearly. He was just
Cameron,
this is my weird fetish, and so I'm going to make
I do have to eat a cable. I still need to do that. I forgot.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note, because there's a bit of discussion about it in the chat. The Class D thing, I'm just going to say for now, don't use Class D on headphones, generally speaking. We'll talk more about this in the amp power section in a minute. Sorry. Didn't mean to derail things.
And also ignoring power, there's just no case for it.
Yeah, so what's the conclusion here on bad taste? I mean, do we feel that there is such a thing as bad taste? Should Class 2 listeners be shot?
I think that there's such, if people are offended by it being called bad, there is absolutely such thing as a statistically completely outlier taste. Yeah. You may be consistent and you may really like these things, but you have to understand that you/some other people, what you're liking/disliking is completely different from the vast majority of people. Whether that's bad or just an outlier.
Like we could call it.
You want to.
One person might say, statistical outlier. Another person might use that as to say bad, because like
you're a deviant.
To say,
you wouldn't want to take a recommendation.
Think about what deviant means.
Yeah.
I would say bad in the case of, you wouldn't want that person giving general recommendations, quite frankly.
Yeah. And
they are highly unlikely to be applicable to other people.
I don't think it's unreasonable to say that something is bad when your judgment on its badness is based on its statistical likelihood of fitting with people's preferences, right? Because at the end of the day, ideally, things should sound good to people, and you want things to sound good to people. And if they sound bad to most people, it is fair to say that this is a bad sounding thing.
We're not saying that you shouldn't enjoy it. That's one thing I think we should make clear is
I think that's sort of what I'm grappling with.
Okay, so my take on this would be, if you have tried 2 different things and you strongly prefer one of them, even though 9 out of 10 doctors would say that the other one is better, that's okay. Listen to that one. Don't force yourself to listen to something which you enjoy less because the internet says that you shouldn't. But you can subjectively enjoy something and understand that your taste is different from other people. It's bad in that your recommendation of that product is probably going to be bad, the bad choice, the wrong choice for most people.
For almost everyone.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you should like be forced to change what you listen to. Listen to what you enjoy most. We're not saying that you shouldn't enjoy it. We're just saying that there are statistical outliers.
Now, with that in mind, though, I still want to push on that idea that like a lot of people don't really understand what good is even for themselves, because they are affected by all the various different framing effects that are involved in product ownership and product purchasing and brand and all these different things, such that they blind themselves to their own preferences even.
I think the biggest issue, to be honest, nowadays is people, I don't know if blinding is the right word, but basically not actually having tried stuff, but still being quite militant about the thing that they bought. You know, they bought something because someone recommended it and people online say that this is the better one or whatever. They haven't tried product B, but you know, when there's a discussion on Headphone about which one you should get, they'll still say, no, you should get product A, it's way better.
And they even claim that, hey, this other thing is really bad, you know, without having heard
even if they've never heard it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people who
for it based on measurements to say this thing is, the Audivina is bad. You don't need to hear it to know that that's probably not going to sound good to most people.
Yeah. But and you can say that, like, you know, most people seem to prefer this other one, and this is some of the feedback that's been said or whatever. But there are definitely a lot of people who I think are you know, potentially misleading other people by making adamant recommendations and sort of you know, trashing other products that they haven't heard to defend their purchase, or because that's just the thing that they happen to have and they've not heard something else, but also potentially missing out themselves. If you don't try other stuff and just go, no, I bought this thing, this is the best thing, then you're not actually, statistically speaking, it's very unlikely that that's the best thing for you.
We can move on to topic number 4.
I was going to talk about how this parallels the arguments about the disability versus social models of mental illness, but we can go on. No, you don't. I mean, shall we rehash anti-psychology?
We're moving on.
Go to the next topic.
Okay. Is DIY at the point where you actually get something better than what you would get if you spend that same money on a commercial product? And this might be in reference to things like the Capra stuff to a certain extent, the Omega to a certain extent. I mean, there's other ones too. Like,
well, the Omega isn't DIY.
It's not technically, no, but there are things that are DIY.
It will be DIY in the long run.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so one
Hedamame is the other one I'm thinking of.
Does DIY include EQ? That's actually quite a good point.
No. Hard no.
I would say no.
So just speaking physically stuff, though.
Well, Blaine, this was your topic.
I would say it. Does it count as DIY if it's a kit? If you're not the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in that case, probably. But
my initial take is that you still can't know. Like, there are some that are, and there are some that very much aren't.
Oh, sure.
There are also a ton of examples where there's like, have you guys seen it where somebody like has a 3D printable HD 800, where it's like it's meant to emulate an HD 800 essentially with the chassis and everything. Oh, okay, so there's that kind of stuff that I've seen. Sorry for hitting my microphone. There's other stuff that's meant to emulate an HD 600, right? So like there are a lot of examples where looks like, feels like is pretty close for these DIY kits, but you still don't really know what the sound is going to be like. And there's other examples where they tangibly measure well. You know, people have measured them and you can get a better sense. So I would say you still, unless you have tangible data that you can go on, and I'm not saying off of, like, you have to know what the rig is too, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would be using like mini DSP ears and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are many boxes that need to be ticked before like you can reliably start a DIY project.
It's conceivable that DIY could be better. But
yes, that's where
the question isn't, is it conceivable? It's, is
Are
it
we
the
there yet?
case?
Yeah.
I would say we aren't. No
I would
offense
agree
to
with
Capra
that.
intended.
Yeah.
But frankly, from perspective of the quality of the fit and finish, from perspective of sound quality for your dollar, I can think of very, very few cases where DIY in audio is superior to buying a commercial product, even if you don't value at all the time you put into it.
Because
There's
also,
just not that many options.
if you think
Yeah.
about like the
Well, it's also
if
that the
it's-
HD6XX is crazy inexpensive.
that's right. If you have like price and you're just going like flat, like, okay, my $200 or whatever it is, what does that get me in DIY audio? Not a lot. not a lot.
Wait, how much money?
200 isn't the
$200
6XX like 200?
Yeah. No, you're
my
not
my
wrong.
counter argument as well would be that there's some like really good IEMs for almost nothing that makes it quite a difficult statement to make as well. Like if you're
Oh, yeah.
exclusively referring to over-ear stuff,
Right.
then maybe it's a little bit different, although I'd still say there's not that many options available. So if anything, it's partly dependent on whether you happen to like the tuning of the like couple things that are available, but also just looking at lower prices and stuff, there's some IEMs which are just fantastic, and you can't get DIY kits for stuff for that cheap.
Yeah.
And
So I
Honestly,
don't.
I think it holds for amps. I think it holds for over-ear headphones. I think it holds for in-ear headphones. Probably holds for earbuds, but you shouldn't get those.
Do you think that at some point we'll be at a point where DIY audio surpasses?
So
Like, there's probably a sweet spot,
contingent
right?
on one of two things. One,
Yeah.
if the HD6XX ever stops being sold. No, genuinely, because like we don't know if that'll ever
That's
happen.
true. Yeah.
Like we've treated it as this kind of immovable fixture because it
Oh, it
does
might
feel that
be-
way, but
It might stop at that price too. Like even if it's still in production, it might not be $220.
right, yeah. Like if it ever goes up to the $240 they tried to push it up to post pandemic, then makes it a little easier for DIY to get in there. But also if you kind of just, and I don't advise anyone do this if they're making a purchase decision, but if you just kind of ignore the existence of that headphone for a second, it kind of does, at least in terms of sound quality, mean that DIY is rather close. I wouldn't say they're there yet, but I would say they're close to the value proposition offered, because I don't really find many of the other options at that price are decent sounding.
Well, it is being led by folks like Capra.
Yeah, sure.
And a couple of others. And I do think that within that, well, how much are the Capra headphones?
For the kits,
yeah, let's say.
that's a question for you, Capra, in chat. How much would a kit for Satyr 2 be? Satyr 2 is their open back headphone that's kind of an ovular HD 600 type shape. With
I don't like your use of the word ovular. It's accurate, but I don't like it.
You're gonna have to deal.
So Capra says you can make
sub 100.
What if you don't have a 3D printer, Capra?
Assuming you have a printer, yeah. So that is kind of the rub, isn't it?
I think realistically, DIY is gonna. It's almost a requirement that you have a 3D printer. Like if you don't have one, then the startup cost is going to be high, and you should probably just buy something outright. But I think most of the DIY stuff is going to assume that you have one.
I mean, like, would we include like Grado mods in DIY?
Like you can get printing services, and I think that printing services are actually part of the DIY equation, which is needed. Like, if you could get 3D printed parts in the US as easily as you can in China right now, there would be a lot more viability for something like a Satyr 2, right? Because you would be able to get those parts made for you for $30 or something. And then it's a much more compelling value proposition than buying your own printer or using a 3D printing service that costs, over $100 for all the parts.
Right.
Or $100 was Capra's estimate.
I will say, as sound quality aside, and that's where I think the DIY sphere is kind of encroaching on some of the other options at these lower prices.
Then there's build.
And
often ergonomics.
So ergonomics are not as much of a toss-up as you would think, because most production headphones are not actually that comfortable.
Actually, that's true. It's not much.
Yeah, and Capra's straps are very well received. So I think that ergonomics is an area where DIY, at least Capra,
is probably actually
DIY.
better.
Not by me, but for people who have the hair.
Yeah. So maybe not great for bald people, but you can just like get some fabric, cut it to shape, glue it on there, and you'll probably be fine. But yeah, I think in ergonomics, actually, we are at that point. We do get something better than you would get from like an Edition XS at that price.
So you saying that
Yeah,
though,
or
like I have come across
569 or whatever.
I have come across some that are ergonomically cursed as well, though. So I wouldn't say.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, you can always find bad DIY, but we're sort of saying if you did it right, can DIY measure up?
Right. Yeah. You can, and even with outright purchase stuff, you can buy a DT990 Pro, but you don't have to. You can buy better options.
Objectively, a highly scored headphone.
I hate that you have this as a tool in your back pocket.
He just does it. I need to change the names here so that Blaine actually gets it referenced as Dr. Brightson and that Griffin gets referenced as Professor Warmpoo. I would be Captain Plainwater, and I don't know what Cameron would be. Source Meme Supreme. All right.
Resolve has hair sleeper build. Never get headphone hair. Ingenious.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I did it. Okay, maybe we should move on to recent impressions of things that we've heard.
Yeah, Cam and Andrew, you guys didn't fill this part in. Do you guys have anything new you want to talk about? Or
nobody ever sends me anything.
So the reason why I can't is the thing that I've been listening to is something I can't talk about. I am very keen on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you will like it, Griffin, because it has treble. Blaine might like it. Might. But yeah, it's Empyrean 2-esque in my mind that I've been enjoying.
Can we go back for just a sec? I want to fight with Mark.
Okay, fight with Mark.
Can you do?
Mark says another way to answer the question: can you do worse than DIY by buying production for the same price?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
And most people
you can do worse than nothing for buying.
No, like if you are actively
you
trying
find
to get
lying
a
in garbage cans,
you can spend a lot of money on an ultrasound.
Yeah. There are so many ways to do worse than what is available in DIY from the reasonable manufacturers.
By the way,
which I think is just you can't use that as a bar.
Shout outs to Mark Ryan. This is his unit, so that's a review that will be out soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Super.
So Griffin, you have some.
Yeah, I have
IEMs.
some stuff. I'm going to talk about this one briefly, like very briefly, the Oracle Mark III. Mark Ryan, shouts out, just reviewed that, just released his review. Spoiler alert, didn't really like it. It's too bright for me. It's too bassy. The mids are okay. I'm just going to go through it quick because I want to get to Fight Club and Spicy Hour.
Yeah.
I have the Dunu Titan S2 here. Yeah, it's really, really quite mid. The bass is very soft.
S2 measures well, reasonably.
I think it's just the mids that look decent on Squig that might make you say that. Shouty? No, well, yes, but not in the mids, like not in the 1 to 2
the usual
region.
Yeah, in the glary region above.
It's in the Harman region where there's too much 3 to 8 kilohertz, and then it has a single DD peak above that, which makes it overall a very bright, hashy kind of grading listen. And the bass is poofy and soft and not substantial enough to balance out the treble. And the mids are decent, but they just get swamped by the treble for me. So
I liked the S1, but I found it too shouty as well.
Yeah, I think this has less of that and more of just like being bass and treble forward, mostly just treble forward. And then I have the Letshuoer S08, which I'll show with a little bit of glare so you can actually see the shape of it. This is probably the one I prefer.
That seems really big.
It's not actually. It's quite like on
just his hands are small.
Also true. But the actual contouring of the shell is actually, it fits very flush against the inside of my ear, and I would say the comfort's quite good.
Is Golden here?
He said he was going to, I think, get a drink or something.
Okay. I just see his thing.
I could use a drink too.
So this one's, feel free. This one's a planar magnetic, but it doesn't necessarily sound like it immediately because it's on the darker side versus planar IEMs I've heard.
It's the dark planar.
It is a dark planar, which in some ways works to its benefit. It's not an immediate nope for me, at least in the treble. The mids are really weird though. There's a very big honk elevation in like the 1K area that makes things sound really small and kind of clenched and a bit shouty. Now there's a lot of bass to kind of offset that. So it does lean overall warm, despite kind of having like a kind of intense upper mid-range ish. But there's also like a 4K dip, which makes it lean even more warm. So overall, like even though it's like a planar IEM, I think people would be surprised by like how warm and kind of like muddy this is. And then that mud is just kind of offset, not by treble, but by like upper mid-range coloration, in a way that I don't vibe with. It's dark in a way I don't like, and it's shouty in a way I don't like, and it's like
weird for you
overly
to say.
bassy
It's
in a way I don't. Well, it's
downbeat.
dark in like the low treble, which like
okay,
leads to like intelligibility issues,
right?
Instead of like dark in the upper treble, which is generally just gonna like sound more normal to me.
Small, clenched, and shouty. Google that, says Mark Ryan.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't recommend most people get this, just because I feel like the people who want a planar IEM generally want something that's more like bright as hell and like detailed, and I don't really get that with this.
Well, bright as hell for you. They just call it sound.
Well, yeah, sure, but I think if people buy this, they would be a little confused if they bought it because it's a planar and they're expecting a sort of presentation. That aside, I would take this over most planars because it's not bright, but it's still not the kind of thing I would ever really choose to listen to. It's noticeably colored. Comfort was pretty good. Really, the best part of both the SO8 and the Titan S2 are the cables, which are exceptional. The Titan
So you're buying nice cables with that happen to have an IEM attached to them.
Yeah, that happen to have some mid IEMs attached to them. So, but that's all for me as far as new stuff. I'll have a written review on the SO8 and the Titan S2 out whenever you get a chance to look at the final edit.
Right. Yep. Cool. Blaine, any recent impressions of a thing, or are you just HD?
No, nobody sends me anything.
Okay, I do have a request.
I'm getting
though.
one of Pud's headphones soon.
Oh yes,
nice,
excellent. So I have a request for Blaine.
Golden phone.
So I had pitched this concept for a live stream, and maybe we can iterate on this. But I would like us to take the subjectivist challenge, which is that you have to describe a headphone in purely subjective terms, and the audience has to guess what it is.
Blaine should review the HG800. The HG800 has been discontinued for like 9 years or something.
You know what he means.
But let's should we give it a try? Does anybody want to give it a shot?
The game?
To take the subjectivist challenge.
Okay, so just reiterating, the game is that you can't use any tonal descriptors or just no FR.
No FR, no. So you can't be like, this has a peak at 6 kilohertz, blah blah blah, right?
But you can be like, this is bright.
You can say, yeah. You can talk about,
okay.
Yeah. You have to make the metaphor at some point, right?
I mean, I'm down to try, but I feel like you would have to give behind closed doors a headphone to be challenging. Like someone would have to be the game master. Tell you. Yeah, like someone would have to be the game master and like tell one of the participants, like, hey, you have to do this headphone. And then even if it's one we're not raring to do, we would have to do it. That would make sense.
Fair.
I'm gonna tell you one. Griffin, and then you can do it, okay?
All right, let's try it.
In the meantime, Cameron, do you have any recent impressions, just generally? While I
no, only thing recently I can't talk about yet either. Although I'm specifically curious. I need to actually, listener, I'm going to send you the FR. We'll talk about it later, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Well, this is the audience is on the edge of their seat.
Okay. All right.
People in chat are offering to send me horrible things.
Isn't that the purpose?
I'll take the
show?
820, Scott.
Okay, so Andrew has sent me the headphone in question, and I'm going to try to describe it as best as I can.
And Cameron and I have to guess or chat.
Are there any other rules you want to put in place before I get started?
No FR.
No FR.
You also can't talk about anything objective. So you can't talk about.
I can't talk about price. I can't talk about driver type. I can't.
That's right.
Can you talk about comfort?
Yes, you can talk about comfort.
Okay.
You
Okay.
can't talk about things like impedances or whatever, or anything
Oh,
like that,
okay.
either, right?
That does make it harder. I wish I didn't ask. Okay. Okay. So this is a headphone that is. Can I talk about what features and configurations are available?
No, that'll give it away.
Okay. So it is for the most part, warm tuning.
I'll say you can say the driver type.
Oh, it's okay. It's a planar that is mostly warm with typical planar stuff happening above, let's say, the above the
can't.
range. I can't say
Oh, I thought you were
mid-range.
going to say frequency.
Oh, no.
Pure subjectivist language here. Like,
Okay.
imagine you are typing on.
It is often noted as being exceptional for dynamics and compared to other headphones of its driver type that are similarly lauded for the same quality.
Caldera?
No, it is similar to Caldera in that it was released fairly recently. It's not an old headphone. Many people have seen different colors of this headphone, not because they are different production.
Come on, tell me about the microplankton. I want to hear about the microplankton.
Honestly, I just didn't like the headphone, so I don't have much like subjective language. It extends very well in the bass. Yeah, chat got it. I mean, it's
LCD5.
no, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's
Tungsten.
Is it tungsten?
It's tungsten.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's tungsten. See, I was hoping you would.
The
you
colors
have to,
gave
like,
it away.
indulge in some of the like ultra subjective language to see if
We
I mean,
might need to do
I
this
talked
next
about the
time, so we've
slam.
got
What
a
more
bit
do
of
you
time to
want
think
from me?
about it?
Okay, so I've just been sent by a member of chat who can verify what he sent me. He sent me a headphone, and now I can describe a headphone.
okay.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so this headphone is probably one of the more overrated headphones out there.
HD 600.
DT990.
Wow, that was fast. God, I'm good.
All right, Cameron, do you want to give it a try? Should we send one to you?
Yeah, go on then.
All right. I'll actually no. Griffin, do you want to message him one?
Yeah, actually. Hold on, let me.
At some point I want to hear Blaine give descriptions.
Oh, but like, do I want to troll Cameron and give him one that's really hard, or should I give him an easy one?
Give me one that's moderate, not something that's super easy, but not something that no one's gonna get.
Okay, send.
I haven't heard it.
Oh, okay.
My goal with this game is to get Blaine to talk about Qualia. Oh, damn it, bingo card.
P-Rat and yeah.
We're actually doing okay on bingo today.
Have you heard that one?
Okay. I can say that it's a close back, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Scott Fletcher
Okay.
says you lost the challenge because you didn't talk about the headphone. I didn't have a chance.
Get wrecked.
Okay. So it's a closed back. Oh God, how do you? I don't know how to say this without like referencing what other people have said. Generally regarded as being particularly dynamic and more neutral sounding. Sounds weird to say. More neutral sounding than most closed backs are. So no, it's not Ordovino. It stages really well for a closed back. It's particularly punchy. So it's not a DCA.
Stages well for a closeback, and it's punchy.
Yes.
Describe the treble.
Isn't that against the rules?
No, you can describe
No.
the treble. You just have to do it in subjective language.
You can't use frequency descriptors, but is it sibilant? Is it bright? Is it dark?
No, it's not
Is it
sibilant. It's a
plasticky? Is it
little
metallic?
bit spicy,
Oh, okay.
slightly metallic.
Oh.
But generally less fucked than most stuff.
Someone in chat got it.
Is it the ZMF icon?
No.
It's a rather nice looking headphone. I'll say
nice
that.
looking
So,
close
yeah.
back. That's
Do we
less-
stop when
It's
someone
quite
in chat gets it,
expensive.
or
I'd
You
say
said-
once like more than a couple people get it.
Okay, you
Otherwise,
said sorry. You
people's
said it's
bang,
quite
right?
expensive.
It's quite
Is it the
expensive.
1770?
Radiance.
No. Okay, a few people have got it. It's a
have gotten
Stellia.
Stellia's not that neutral though, man.
No,
Is it
it's
not?
not. But I mean, like more neutral than a lot of closed backs are. That's good. It's a closed back, so it's inherently going to be one.
I guess. Oh, my camera just went super weird.
Yeah, it was Focal Stellia for those who didn't get that.
All right.
All right. Andrew, are you going to do the one I sent you?
Oh, I didn't see. Sorry, my camera's suddenly choppy.
No.
All right.
Hard mode.
This one is acoustically very strangely designed. It's designed in a very unconventional way.
Oh, one.
Yep.
All right, I sent.
I
one
would
to
argue
Griffin.
that that's too objective. Of a
It is. You're
description.
right. It is.
It
I should have.
is.
Okay. Send another one because that's a bit unfair.
I'll give you one. Hang on, I'll give you one because I want to see what you say about it subjective, like in just purely subjectivist descriptions.
Guys, I can't describe Eris because I have heard it, but like for 5 seconds at a show.
But you've looked at the graphs, so you should be able to simulate it in your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how that works. Yeah.
Joel, if you have one, you can DM me.
I've DM one to Andrew.
Okay. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, this is a headphone that is extremely detailed sounding and overwhelmingly unnaturally spacious in a way that has meaningful hits to and downsides to timbre and goodness and joy. It is
HD
at the
800.
Nope. It is at the same time like the kind of thing where very specific things will pop out at you in the music that you're listening to. Incredible bass texture. It is a slammy, punchy boy. It is a planar. It is an open back. It is particularly uncomfortable.
It's an HE6.
Nope.
No?
No, I think
HE6
the people in
is
chat
bad.
are right. It's the Abyss.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey, that was all right though, right? That was
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I sent one to Griffin.
It
Do the
is
next topic after that.
it is the best headphone in the world for the things I care about.
Sound descriptions first. Sound descriptions.
Megafest.
It has the best sound stage of any over-ear headphone. It
HD 800?
has
S.
and it was just HD 800.
Okay.
See, that's
not the
easy though,
best
because that's
headphone.
like there's a subjective description there that's so like
There's
intertwined with
some
that
headphones where you
headphone
can just say
that-
stage and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now Joel gave me one which I think will be a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
So it has very rotund, bouncy bass.
Ooh.
The sense
Tell me
of
more about that
punch and
rotund,
slam on
bouncy
kick
bass.
drums is particularly pronounced. The mid range is tilted in such a way that things sound intense and vivacious and vibrant, and the sound stage is noticeably thrown away from me, and the treble is bad, but the comfort is also very bad.
Diana V2?
So I'm going to give you guys a handicap here and say that it's actually an IEM.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Oh,
think you
well,
were.
I don't
probably
fucking
thinking
know.
about that. Yeah.
I'm going to be a little more clueless.
It is
Ah.
tuned in rough accordance with
Scarlet?
the Lord's
Stone.
chosen
You mean Crimson?
Harmon curve.
Crimson, whatever.
Moondrop Variations.
No, you're getting warmer though.
Nova.
Dusk 2.
Even warmer. It
Hexa?
has a mid bass
Freakier Red.
emphasis more than a sub bass emphasis. Closer.
Project Blue.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey.
Wait, the original Project Blue.
Yeah.
Okay, we should probably move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fight Club.
Ooh.
Nice.
I'm not even sure the first one is going to get us fighting because I think we're all going to agree, but we can fight with chat, which is almost as good.
All right. So the topic is, do amplifiers have too much power to the point that it's a problem now? And I think this is your hobby horse blame.
The answer
This is
is
Blaine,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
I-
answer is not even ambiguous. Yeah.
Okay. So I was going to say, because firstly, a lot of people drastically overestimate how much power their headphones actually need. if you have a headphone that needs more than 1 watt, if that, that is very unusual. And even headphones which have a reputation for being really hard to drive, like the Susvara and OG HE6, don't actually need that much, generally speaking. I think the Susvara, if you wanted to have like full-on headroom for, you know, all the crest factor you could possibly need up to 110 dB, it needs like 4.5 watts. So there's two things. One, you really don't need that much power, generally speaking. Almost all headphones will need drastically less than 1 watt. And second is that go and watch. We did a video on Do I Need an Amp? The
My math
maximum
says
power
you'd
spec
only
of
need
your...
about 2 watts for the HE6.
It might be. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the HE6. I've just checked the Susvara. But we did a video on Do I Need an Amp? And that talks about why the maximum power spec for your amplifier is almost useless. It doesn't actually tell you how well it's going to drive a really hard to drive headphone. Amplifiers, which people sort of subjectively say are fantastic with headphones like the Susvara and HE6 and things like Mascobo 465 or the Zale HM1. Mascobo 465 is like 4.5 watts. HM1 caps out at, I think, 3.5 watts. The reason that you may want an amplifier which has more power is not because it has more power. It's not because of headroom, because actually headroom in and of itself is technically a bad thing. I'll talk about that in a sec. But it's because if your amp can do 2 watts, it's likely that when it's driving 0.5 watt, it's not performing at its best. And so having an amplifier which has a higher max power may mean that it's going to perform better when driving the headphone at what it does actually need. That is also increasingly less the case nowadays, particularly with the like really high feedback based stuff where it doesn't change in performance until it just outright stops. So yeah, people drastically overestimate how much power they need for headphones. And you should be looking at the distortion versus power graph, not just the how much power the amp has. There's various amplifiers which can do like 15 watts, but at 0.5 watt have 10 times more distortion than they have at 0.1 watts or something.
So, and there's a point on the level that people think that they require, which I really want to hammer on. If you can use your volume knob, you are not in the top 90% of your amplifier's output power, unless its gain is incorrectly configured. If your amplifier hits its peak output from the peak output of a normal DAC, then if you tilt the knob to like, well, I mean, it depends on where the indicator is, but if you go 1 o'clock less, you have probably decreased the output power, the maximum output power, by like a factor of 4, possibly more.
If you are at like noon on the pot, you are not at 50% power on the amplifier. You are probably at like 1 or 2%.
Yep.
If that.
Because it's, if that. It's logarithmic. You are, and also, and this is also explained in that Do I Need an Amp video. Seriously, please do go watch that. The volume knob itself tells you nothing about how much power your amp has. There are a lot of amplifier manufacturers, unfortunately, that are taking advantage of this misconception. Giving their amplifiers higher gain doesn't mean that they have more power. So that, you know, you're running a Susvara or an HE6 or something, and you're like, wow, I'm only at 9 o'clock on the volume knob, and it's already really loud. This amp's really powerful. Actually, it doesn't mean that. Because on some of these amps, you can get to 1 o'clock, and then the amp just shuts off to protect itself because it's already dying. That's
we have a comment in chat that I want to pick on specifically.
Yep.
Dixter says, you know what sucks? When you get in a new headphone and you plug it in and you keep pushing the volume knob until it's way past 12.
That's fine.
So let me tell you, that's a good thing, actually.
You want to be like close to the upper end.
The reason for this is that volume knobs have worse matching between the channels the lower you get.
Yep.
Like at 12, you are probably in the space where it might be 1.5 decibels of imbalance, possibly 3.
At the same time, just it's worth being careful with how loud you listen. Don't.
Oh no! To be clear, this is a case for lower
that.
gain factors and lower output powers.
Yeah. Basically, if you are, you know, at like noon on your volume knob, that means that your amp, whatever the gain difference between that and maximum is, that means your amp has too much gain. Ideally, so if the optimized gain structure would be that if you're from your DAC to the amount of gain that your amp has to your headphone, you would be almost at the very end of your volume control. That means that
the variation would only be
the right
like
amount of gain. Sorry, go ahead.
The only variation would be how much you want to adjust for lower like average level music, but 6 dB would be like, I would say, a safe amount of adjustment.
So it's not
exactly.
unreasonable to just reduce your digital volume and then turn up your physical.
No, it's not that's not so much the issue. It's more just that if your amp has too much gain, then it is also amplifying
the amp
noise
itself,
more than it has.
Yeah. I hear you.
Exactly. So actually, a lower gain. This is also another thing where people will often put their amplifiers into high gain mode, even if they are now running at like 9 o'clock rather than 12 or 1 o'clock or something, because they think it makes it more powerful. It doesn't. Gain and power are completely separate. It doesn't make it drive your headphones.
Scott, no, don't do that. Sorry, Scott said, "Oh, so I should run my amp at full power and turn the volume down on the DAC."
No, don't do that either.
But like really, I think that's what people might be getting from this, and that's not what we're saying.
No.
What
I'm saying is that
do not do
amplifiers themselves are very often built with too high a gain for what you actually need. If your amp has too high gain, it means that your amplifier is amplifying noise more than it needs to be. You are losing dynamic range.
And you're attenuating the input, so you're fucking your SNR.
Yes, exactly. The ideal solution would be for an amplifier to have a gain setting, which means that you can run it at the exact volume that you need, almost at the top, because that means that it is amplifying things just the right amount.
And it should be noted that for headphones, the gain factor you need, if your Windows volume is maxed, is probably negative. Like for an average headphone, if the peak output of the audio would be 2 VRMS, you are probably wanting to attenuate that by between a factor of 3 and a factor of 20. So that's why you end up even at unity gain with your knob down.
But the criticism is also somewhat dependent on the headphones that you are trying to run. I mean, the criticism is fair generally of amplifiers and their design in that respect, but if you're trying to run this, for example, you shouldn't really need to care about how much gain you have on here. It's not a hard headphone to drive, is the point.
No, but the i-Fi Diablo 2, for example, that was a product which they put just excessive gain settings on it to the point where, as Blaine said, most of the time you will need a negative gain for your headphone. DACs typically output about 4 volts. For
balance.
For balanced. For a Hi-Fi Aria, for example, I think to get it to like 90-something dB, I can't remember the exact numbers, but 90-something dB, you need like 600-700 millivolts in total. So that means you're going to be attenuating by
very high.
Yeah, I think that was like a upper end thing. So you're going to need like minus 10-ish dB probably of gain. A lot of amplifiers will, like the i-Fi Diablo 2, the lowest gain setting is, I think, 0 dB. It doesn't have a negative gain setting, whereas most amps will. Which means that...
Well, not most, but many, and which is good.
Yeah. Which means that for almost all headphones, you are never going to get near the upper end of it. It is amplifying things too much. It's amplifying noise more than it has to. And it's also not that powerful a device. It caps out at about 0.8 watts. But it feels more powerful because you don't have to turn the volume up all that much. And the silly thing about its gain settings is that, unlike the highest gain, even unloaded, when it doesn't have to provide any current to the headphone, if you turn it past, I think it's about midday or something, it just starts hard clipping. And with something like a Susvara on high or medium gain, it was like if you get it to about 1 o'clock, it just shuts off due to overcurrent protection. So there are amplifiers out there at the moment where they're putting higher gain settings on it because people think that the volume control is an indicator of available power or headroom when it's not. And also, headroom just means that you are, again, amplifying things too much. Having more power that you're not actually using is not a good thing.
So the Sim channel asks, and I think this is a good question, why don't amps have a gain knob instead of a volume knob? And the answer for that there's a couple of answers for that. One, obviously, is that not all amplifiers are stable at all gain levels. But another, and this is fairly important, is that the gain configuration of the amplifier is part of the feedback loop of the amplifier. So you have some pretty tight restrictions on how you can lay things out while also having a potentiometer be part of it. And getting negative gain out of an amplifier, it requires having a potentiometer that attenuates. And it also means you have to have an inverting amp, but nobody cares about that.
Yeah. So like headphones like, the Susvara and stuff, or other, hard to drive headphones, you probably don't need as powerful an amp as you thought. In the past, it was a little bit more of a grayish area.
I mean, you don't need a
speaker amp? So that's what I was going to say, because I used to run my Susvaras on a speaker amp. Not because I need 25 watts at 32 ohms of power, but because at the time, most of the headphone amps that you could buy, when they were delivering 1 or 2 watts, weren't performing that well. They might be able to do 6 watts at full output before, crapping out, but at 1 or 2 watts, they were still distorting way more. Nowadays, there's a lot of different amplifiers with still quite high max power specs that, or even lower ones, that perform great at 1 or 2 watts. And so that's not really an issue anymore. You don't need a speaker amp for your headphones. And I think the problem with that is that it caused a bit of confusion and made a lot of people think that having more power on tap, even if you don't technically need it, is still a good thing when actually it's not.
Well, and it'll also influence people's purchase decisions. They would go, this amp only has, 1 watt, or like something like that, right? Yeah. Compare that to this other one that's cheaper that has way more power.
I also just want to mention on the speaker amp thing, because this is something that was being discussed in chat earlier. Resolve, I'm just going to quickly DM you a link if you can open this just to show it on screen. So Class D amps, not all of them, but many of them, are not something that you should use with headphones. Class D amps have an output filter. This is sort of part of the design, and the driver itself, the load that you connect to it, forms part of this filter. They are designed typically for speakers, where you know that it's going to be typically an 8 ohm load or very close to that. Yeah, or 4. And so Resolve is just going to pull up an image I made. I did some maths just to show what happens when it goes quite far from this, because people were talking about, using Class D amps for tungsten, for example.
You did maths? All of them?
Did quick maths.
Which image would you like me to?
It's the gain versus frequency.
Yeah, that's it.
The graph one. Yeah, the gain versus frequency one.
So what that is the frequency response of the amplifier, and the output filter there is changing because the quality factor, the Q of the output filter's low pass, is directly affected by the resistance of the speaker coil. So when you have a very high coil resistance, you end up with this ludicrous high frequency peak.
Yeah. And so the problem with this is that it is just going to be coloring your sound, because you can see that even in the audible band under 20 kilohertz, if you put a 160 ohm headphone, doesn't even have to be that much, but 60, 150 or 300 ohm headphone on a Class D amp, it will be boosting treble in the audible band, but also stuff just slightly above that, which there may still be content there depending on what your DAX reconstruction filter is and stuff, can in some cases be boosted by like 30 to 40 dB, which can be dangerous. Don't put that through your headphones and don't put that into your ears.
Yeah, I mean, that could, depending on if there's high frequency noise, legitimately endanger your voice coil.
Yeah.
To say nothing of distortion products.
Yeah, you risk damaging your headphones quite significantly, and you risk damaging your ears. Do not run headphones on Class D amps. There's just no good reason to do it anymore. There are no headphones which need 25 watts at 32 ohms. There are plenty of actual headphone amps like or can do 9.5 watts, I think, at 32 ohms and stuff, for example. And there's topping amps for not that much money that will do about the same. But also, yeah, it's just straight up risky. Please don't do it. That's just what I wanted to say on the Class D thing. The slight exception to that is the newer Hypex stuff. Their output filter design is sort of done in a way where the load, in theory, doesn't matter. I've not tested one to see if there are any other performance impacts or anything. But again, it's a case of you don't need it, don't do it. It's still risky. There's just no, you're putting yourself at risk.
There's no purpose.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So I just wanted to note on the
fuzzy, sorry, Dixter, the fuzzy amp does have a filter. You can't have a Class D amp without a filter.
Well, you can, but you will regret
it. You can
it.
if you want to blow stuff up, yeah.
You shouldn't.
Yes, please.
Sorry, Blaine.
I think Fozzy has a dedicated headphone amp, but that works differently. I'm talking about the Fozzy Class D speaker amps, which people were using for headphones. Do not do that.
So for the Aria, I just ran the numbers. To get to 110 dB peak, you need 243 millivolts into the Aria.
There you go.
Now, comparatively, that's for the normal dynamic range of music. That is already hearing damagingly loud. Like 16 dB is a pretty reasonable crest factor to use for normal music. And if you wanted to keep your average to about 85, you only need 101 dB. Now, hold on, let me just quickly do the quick maths to figure out how much that is, but I think it will be a little bit under 100 milliwatts to do that.
For some reason, your audio is popping.
Oh, I'm popping?
Yeah.
A little bit,
yeah. But yeah, I generally use 110 just because then it's like a value which no one will complain about. Like it's if you are a louder listener, you may genuinely, depending on the crest factor of your music, need a little bit up to that much.
Sorry, and this is why
like, I need
logarithms aren't intuitive. I just did the math. The aria to reach 101 dB peak, which is equivalent to 85 dB average with normal, like with
Crest
normal crest factor / dynamic range, 33 milliwatts.
Blaine, your audio is doing some really weird stuff right now.
Yeah, maybe
I'll try
check
to
the
fix
noise gate.
It sounds like a buffer issue. Like you might need to restart or unplug and replug the thing.
It's some clickies. I think we might want to move on just because I think Andrew
we need to move
has
on.
to
We need to move on. Yeah.
go soon.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to say again, Dixter. I know it has a new filter. It's still the same issue. This is a universal thing with Class D amps. It's just how they work. Please do not use it and do not recommend that people do that for headphones.
Okay, so on to the next one here, where we might actually fight with one another.
Yes.
Should people shopping for IEM / closebacks even consider options without ANC anymore?
Yes.
I would also say yes.
I would say no.
Why?
So Blaine's just mouthing no because
Yeah.
so
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I fixed?
Yes.
you are
Seems
fixed.
okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. I had to remove my noise gate and my signal processing, so
It's okay.
pardon me. if
Sounds
there's
much
noise.
better. So
but
just to
go ahead.
ensure we understand this topic, the suggestion is that there are a whole bunch of things that you could get in the passive wired headphone space for closebacks or IEM, specifically for the use condition of, let's say, isolating.
Well, no, not even
oneself.
specifically. This is general.
Yeah, I know, but like, hold on. So like, there are for that application where you cannot wear open back headphones, for example. Is it worth considering the things that don't include ANC?
And the answer is firmly no.
I would say no.
I would disagree.
Okay,
Because
so let's talk
because
about...
IEMs.
Okay, but IEMs are where I would say it's especially not worth it. But anyway, go ahead, Blaine. Sorry.
So
let's
hear the case for prioritizing ANC first.
Okay, so when we talk about ANC, we're not really, those of us who are on the ignore everything without it side, are not actually saying that active noise canceling is that important, right? Because active noise cancellation does improve your SNR a bit, but it mostly affects low frequencies. The perceptual effects will be very variable, frankly, and it can in some cases be unpleasant to people. What we actually want is something that comes from having ANC, right? And that is feedback control with a microphone in the front volume. Now, that feedback control is a necessary thing to have conventional feedback ANC. It's the microphones weren't put there because they improve sound quality. They were just put there because they have to have them in order to cancel noise effectively. There are other ways, but let's ignore that.
Yeah, or to do a proper
ANC
transparency mode. Like you have to have a read of the sound in the ear canal to know what.
Well, in the ear pad, but yes.
Well, yeah. I was talking about IEMs, but yes, the front volume.
Yeah, front volume. So because that's there, the microphone is always listening to the output, and the majority of ANC gear will, even when it's in like ambient mode / aware mode, which usually for people avoids a lot of the annoyance people have with ANC, will be monitoring basically the low frequency behavior of the headphones. So the low frequency behavior of the headphones, for closed headphones in particular, is really variable based on how it couples to your head or your ear canal. There is a solution to that, though, and it is literally active control based on active monitoring of its output. You can see this when we do measurements of closed headphones with a little air gap or leak versus something that's active. It's going to have massively less loss of bass for both IEMs with a slightly leaky ear tip and for closed over ears with glasses, with hair, with all those things that normal humans have. And bass is a huge amount of our perception of music.
So all of that might be true, but my counterpoint is there's literally like one good ANC product.
Well,
I mean, that's not that's one more than there is like a good closed back in the same.
See,
price
I would
range.
disagree.
exactly.
Like
in
like
the same price range. Hold on, how much is the APP2? Because obviously that's what I'm talking about.
$200.
And there's no good closebacks around $200. Would we choose the APP2 over?
I would
have
choose it
two
over
things.
literally any closed back.
Would we choose it over a K370, K371?
Yeah.
Yes.
My answer is maybe. Would I choose it over? What other IEMs could you get for around that price?
I mean, it doesn't
It's
matter.
not
Like
that far off.
APP2 is like it's like the HD6XX of that price range, where it
Yeah,
kind of
and
goes
like it
Bluetooth
is
everything, and
it
everything
is
has
solid.
to
It's-
live up to that.
It is solid, and it's not. Here's the thing, though. It's not perfect. It does have
Of
issues.
course
It
not.
does have flaws.
Sure, it's a wireless
Um,
product. It has inherent flaws. Yeah.
And so I would actually say that you can find wired IEMs that are going to be competitive with this.
Disagree.
reasonably. It depends on your
So
preference.
what's the IEM that does compete with it?
At around, again, it depends on how much range you're offering for the price. Because
range?
because I always think like if people can afford $250, they can afford 300, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not $250.
No,
It's
I
like
know, but you-
200 or less
you
on
get
sale.
you get what I'm saying, right? So there
Yeah.
are. So I would say, how much is the Taunch Gym Origin?
Oh, I would not consider that a comparable product at all in
I think
terms of
it's
sound
alright.
quality. No,
Would you actually recommend that someone you love buy the Taunch Gym Origin over the
Over
AirPods?
an
I
APP2?
absolutely would not.
Hmm.
No, but that's the thing.
If
I
your
wouldn't
mother or your sister was like, "Yo, I want
maybe.
an in-ear, I want an earphone,"
No, it
You know
has
what?
no
deciding
bass.
between the Taunch Gym Origin and
false.
the AirPod Pro 2.
No. I'm
quick.
saying from a
By the way, guys,
consumer's
sorry. Whilst we're
standpoint-
talking about this, we're going to have to speed run Spicy Hour, so post spicy takes and questions in the chat.
I am also like not that familiar with the rest of the landscape, but like for example, I would say that the sound quality you get from the Hexa is actually better than the APP2.
I would disagree, and I think most consumers would listen to a Hexa and be like, "This shit has no bass."
Yeah, that's bass.
Well, it
Be
depends
less
on
of
the
a be
fit.
less of a class 2 listener.
Well, no, I mean, like, hold on a second.
Well, I mean, I'm not one of them. Like, I like the Hexa just fine.
That's what I would tell
but
them.
I think
We should know when we have had measurements of in-ear responsive earphones, there has been really substantial variation with passive earphones below 100 hertz, frankly, but particularly below 50 hertz.
Someone says APP2 technical performance is like a potato. I mean,
okay,
so like
who
my
cares?
issues with it are
My grandma
absolutely
doesn't care about technical
Okay,
performance.
hold on. Now, okay, so really what you guys are saying is that for normies, for people without the brainworms, there's no
Who,
reason
by the
to
way,
consider
are better
products.
at selecting
So
products that
here's
are
the
bad.
thing.
Sweetheart,
For
why
the
is the
audiophiles
imaging so trash?
There is an audience for
APP2
whom
has real soundstage.
there is an audience for whom I would say, there is no reason where there is no scenario where I would suggest to them that they would choose a wired passive product over an ANC one. I think that's true, but in that case, it's like it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody who really cares about, a particular aspect of the sound quality that they're just not going to get from this, then it is worth going to some of these other products.
So what particular
and just
aspect?
hold on,
Yeah.
you guys also have to steelman the point of the question here, which I feel like you're failing to do, which is, should you even consider options? Meaning that price is not the necessary limiting factor here. It's the category. And in that respect, would you recommend a Dusk over an APP2? I absolutely would, for people who care about sound
I would
quality.
not. Neither
It's not
based
even
on
close.
I would not, based on sound quality, ease of use, like
Okay,
really
that's just a terrible
any
take.
part of it.
I mean, ease
No.
of use and the benefits to ANC and SNR. That's
And spatial
100%.
audio.
And the fit,
Yeah, and spatial audio, yeah.
and the consistency of response under a certain.
Yeah, so I'm not saying there's no benefits, but I think the overall
There's
sound
quite a tall
quality you
stack
get-
of benefits.
There's
actually.
there's
Dusty
there's a
focus
lot
is
of there's a
significantly
lot of
better.
benefits, and what
Yes.
what your Dusk take there is contingent on is the sound quality.
Yes,
which,
absolutely.
Like, we're
the
gonna
sound
disagree.
quality
We're
if the
gonna
DSP
disagree
cable
on.
doesn't glitch.
If
If you
it's
like
not
the
that
Dusk
Yeah, that's
tuning.
true.
It's not that. Actually, did you guys try the
If you get a good seal.
firmware update?
No, but you have to get a good seal with the crappy included tips. Sorry, Crin. but they're terrible.
It's
have to
not
have
that hard.
other
You're vastly overstating the effort required to get a good seal, or just
tips?
use other tips, right?
No, even well, normal people. Not a lot of people are going to just have.
So again, it's contingent on the audience. Normal people, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to recommend the APP2. But for anybody who is like, I care uniquely about sound quality, such that I'm going to forgo the benefits of never mind ANC, just wireless in general, right? That's
okay. But what are the
okay? Wait. Hold
of,
on. We got an important comment from Scott. We've been ignoring this. Dusk is uncomfortable. Good take.
I actually agree.
Yeah,
but
okay, so that's bad.
It is, but I actually have similar comfort issues with this. I do not find this to be comfortable either. I mean, that's fair. I enjoy this. This is my favorite TWS, and I think it's the best one bar none. But I still have comfort issues with it. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about IEMs.
You want to know what's really uncomfortable? Having to manage a cable.
You know what? Actually, no, I disagree. I think it's uncomfortable for babies.
I'd agree with Griff on that. Like, particularly if you're on the go,
are just kind of
as in like moving about, walking,
no
whatever. Having to deal with the cable is a pain.
I have no issues with
I do not understand this take, Andrew Park.
Having to deal with a cable and a dongle is a pain.
Yes, we've got a guy in chat who's just flexing the sheer volume of his Simba Cavum.
Wait, what is
the
this?
B2 Dusk and Dusk are really comfy for me.
Lucky me. All right,
dude's got like an
rub
ear
it in,
that you could fit a quarter in sideways.
No, but there are, and that's the thing is there are lots of people for whom the Dusk is reasonably comfortable. And I'll give you another example. So the Dusk is one product, right? And we might say, okay, it's a large product that's inconvenient too, right? There are a lot of sacrifices that people who care significantly about their sound quality that they're willing to make. One of them is often cables. One of them is often the largesse of the product, right?
So it's expensive, uncomfortable, inconvenient.
Yeah, they're willing to
inconsistent.
Has to deal with
the consistency thing is like less
microphonics.
Yeah. So they're willing
it's actually not microphonics, it's capable of structural noise, but
okay, whatever. They're willing to make the concession on those things for the benefits of sound quality. And for that audience, I think there are absolutely reasons to go with non-ANC products. But for the general public, no, I'm gonna be on your side for that. Of course not. Because you can't expect that people are going to value sound quality over those other things.
The thing is, those same benefits and detriments do still exist for the audiophiles with the brainworms. It's just they care so much about their constructions of sound quality and stuff like that.
When you say their constructions, they genuinely prefer these products.
No, I know.
We don't actually know that. We don't actually know that they genuinely. We know they prefer these products.
I mean, I actually would say
that they genuinely prefer the sound.
I would say that the people who are upset about the, let's say, technicalities in the APP2 have a general case because the treble is poo.
I mean, that may be the case, but the thing is, we actually don't know. Like, sure.
There are tests. That's true. We haven't done the blind testing, but there is a case to be made for. I prefer the sound quality in X, therefore I'm going to choose this X product that doesn't have ANC, and I can't fault people for making that choice. And I think that for people, like I would recommend to those people, to people who are like, yeah, I really hate these the way that the whatever treble performs on this other thing. I would recommend them a wired, a non-ANC.
Well, there are also brighter ANC products that will.
But just because they're brighter doesn't mean that they're good.
Okay,
like I would actually say the other ones
with particularly roaring bad take.
What's up?
But it's pertinent. We need more open back travel headphones. I want to be able to walk my dog and hear what's happening around me. What you want is better transparency modes.
Yeah.
Which also solves the issue people talk about thumping with ANC. Etc.
We have ignored a little bit in this discussion the closeback debate. And in that respect, again, if you ignore price, there are some good closebacks out there.
What closeback is good?
Radiance is pretty good. E3 is pretty good.
I don't agree.
I mean, this is for you guys.
Okay, but if the people who are on both extremes of treble and bass preference,
okay, here's the thing. Compared to closeback ANC products like over ears, I mean, like you can't tell me that like the fucking XM4's tuning is better than the K371.
Yeah, I would say the XM4
XM5.
But again,
XM5
Apple
is still
what
terrible.
I would look at as the example of what controverts everything
better
else.
than the K371. I'm sorry.
I'll be honest.
Okay,
I take
it is though because it has bass on my head. I would
Also
choose the
true.
T35 over
Just
a
get a better
K271
head.
because it has
The-
bass
the-
on my.
the-
But you can't
Well,
tell
true, like,
people that, right? Like you can't tell
The
people get a better
Radiance
head.
also has noticeable problems just with even my wireframe glasses.
I would actually say
Like,
the biggest
it-
issues with the Radiance is the comfort.
Well, that too. I mean, there's
Oh,
a whole host of problems with it.
Yes,
Actually.
but also the
But
consistency.
also the
on
sound
head.
quality is not good for me.
For
I
you,
would-
it's fine for me.
What? I would also agree.
Okay, Eggman.
This is just a you
Fucking-
just
Yeah,
get a
but,
better
but
head.
Scott brought up.
Sorry, the rest of us are Sonic the Hedgehog pilled, but
What does that mean?
All right, I haven't heard from Cameron on this.
No, I mean my main issue is that there's not many good sounding ANC headphones. Like
Yeah.
the Batiste is the main one that comes to mind for me. Main issue there is that it doesn't quite extend big enough for me to wear long term.
But
So
you
I
can't.
can't-
You
mids
also
on the
can't say
Batiste.
that the Batiste has a mid-range tuning that is even remotely comparable to the good non-ANC closebacks.
Well, the
Right.
No,
Batiste
I
Batiste
mean,
was
like,
not.
generally, if the focus is on sort of sound quality, which this is going to be the thing, and where the argument about normies versus
Yeah.
brainworm
So
people
all depends
come
on the
in.
audience.
If you're talking about sound quality, I don't feel that any of the ANC options are comparable to some of the similarly priced or cheaper wired normal options. I think there's a number
okay,
of good
what
ones
would
out
you
there.
say sounds better than your average JBL ANC headphone?
That one actually doesn't sound
At
very
what
good. I've heard it. It's not
Right,
good.
like
The Everest?
that's not a high bar.
That's not.
I heard that. Wait,
It's disgustingly warm. It's because
oh yeah, it is.
it has
They've
no.
got a notch in the treble. It's fucked
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
like,
actually
but
not
like
sure I've
at
heard
what
with-
price for IEMs? Like Moondrop Kato.
Yeah, I mean,
I-
there are many just decent, solid.
AirPods
I mean,
Pro 2
conventional
stops.
non ANC. I would say here's my sort of pet peeve. I'll go back to Cameron here in a second, but like with so many of these ANC products, you don't actually get to use the biggest benefits of these products, which is customizability that you could have. Right, you could have some sort of
Well, that's the biggest benefit to like brainworm people.
Yeah, but like, okay, so like if you're not going to tune it, like in an ideal world, I think we would probably agree on this. Things should be tuned reasonably to a normal sound signature and then give people options to say, I want it to be like this or like that. But the fact that in the overwhelming majority of cases for ANC products, they are tuned like fucking bonkers, like throw something at the wall and it's just like this weird wiggly thing.
Well, that's also true of clothes in general.
Yeah.
It's okay, but I would say there are more examples of reasonableness in closebacks than in some closebacks than there is in a. Yes, you can.
I don't know
and
about
like
that.
the good examples of
There's not
closebacks
many
headphones.
closebacks that
The
I
good
like.
example. No, there aren't that many, but I would say that there
How
are
many are
probably
there?
more.
How many?
Okay.
Like
one.
unironically,
Actually,
the
hold on,
only
I can
closed
list
back that I can think of that I actually really quite like is the Caldera closed.
I can list.
Other
I
than
will
that,
list them.
there's
I will list them.
really not many.
Okay, so
Okay.
Azuris with EQ. All right.
I wasn't
Okay,
maybe
so
two.
if we're including EQ, then why don't we include that
Yeah,
for all the
but
ANC stuff?
that it is included because it does use DSP and it
Yeah,
should
but you
be
can
better.
still EQ
Your
them.
grandma's not going to use EQ.
Well, she
So
is.
Zurich
she's
is
just not
often-
gonna
No,
go
but,
out
but
and
she
make
is
her
using
compare
DSP when she's using those products.
No,
Azuris
but
is
she's not
off the
going to like
list.
do an EQ herself.
No, but also with a lot of those products, you have the app where you can also adjust those things, right?
Yeah, so why aren't you
To some
comparing on
degree.
that basis?
What do you mean?
What
Yeah,
you're
I
saying,
am. I
Azuris
am.
with EQ.
No. I am. I'm saying what you get with the apps is awful because it never actually
usually
fixes the
is.
things that you need
Yeah.
to fix. It's
Well,
terrible.
that's not always true.
Name one.
E3 is quite good, but
The
I
only
also
one
don't know how much of
is
a
the-
close back I'd consider the E3 to
the
be. 'cause
only
it's
one
not
that has
really closed.
Okay,
Oh, is it not?
the only ANC product that has decent customizability in the app is the AKG NC700 Mark II. Everything else is significantly subpar.
Yeah, and
that
that
was
headphone was
our
so good that they
AKG
discontinued
N700.
it.
Sorry, I missed what you said there, Blaine.
Rest in power, AKG N700. We miss you.
Did they not make it anymore?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so good that they discontinued it.
Well,
That-
also it broke literally every
Yeah,
time.
no, it
that's-
was,
that's
it
the
was
problem,
very,
yeah.
it was not comfortable, and it was
No,
not built.
and it broke.
I really
yeah.
wish they'd taken the hardware and software and put it into a housing that didn't break
Yeah.
every single time.
I would take that Sennheiser Momentum over ear, like whatever the current version is, if they
The
had
M4?
a. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's actually ergonomically decent, and
Yeah, it's fine.
and it's not a horrible sound quality, but it lacks the adjustment customizability that it could have, right? But anyways, okay, I can list. I wanted to go back to listing the closebacks that are good. There actually, if you guys haven't heard this, the Drop Aeon X closed is very
so
good.
that's one.
And it's not expensive. That's like often like 300, or someone can correct me on the price, but it's not that expensive. It depends on what kind of seal you get on the Radiance shirt, right? If you're talking about that, but for me and on my head, it's reasonable. It's decent.
So the Radiance for Andrew, but not for
I would
us.
say that maybe not for you guys. Right? I would say this because it is ergonomic and it's lightweight and comfortable, right? And in its frequency response is again reasonable and better than the vast majority of ANC products.
The Microsoft Azure cloud.
Yeah. The Aeon 2 Noir is also reasonable, better than most ANC products. The again, this is you could put the Celestia in there. People don't like that; it's more claustrophobic, so maybe we don't want to include that. Let's say the Radiance over the Celestia. All right. I'm going to list now more for myself, though. I'm going to include
most of those were already just for you.
Yes.
No, I'm saying I'm going to list more now, also just for myself. So I thought the Caldera Closed was quite good. I would take the Caldera Closed over literally every single ANC product out there. The there was one other one. Oh crap! Now I can't. It's escaping me.
Just because I
wouldn't really say the stealth necessarily, but there is a case to be made for the stealth to be included on.
Is
that list.
there?
I think there is, because for people where the waveguide thing actually works the way it's intended to. Oh, sorry, E3. That's the one. That's the other one. E3 I'll put on there as well. Yeah.
E3 doesn't isolate all that well though, which defeats a lot of the purpose of a closeback for me.
Isolate's fine for me.
Like okay, fair enough. Also, Yakucho, go take your pizza out the oven. So
what?
So, anyways, that's a list of the closebacks that I think are better than all of the ANC closeback products that are out there. Like like over ears, right?
And that I wasn't paying attention to each one. How many of those are more expensive than what we're talking about?
3.
All but one.
I'm pretty sure it was all of them but one of them.
No, because the
like if we take the AirPods Max as like the most expensive mainstream.
But I'm talking about like all of the ANC closebacks, which includes ones that do go up to like $1,000, or there's one that's like $50.
Very rarely.
Yeah, I mean, there's the ones from B&O, there's the ones from Mark Levinson, there's the Batiste, which is like also in the like 600.
Yeah, but those are all worse than things that cost less.
Yeah.
In over ear passive closebacks as well, with the Aeon X closed.
Yeah,
the would you take those Nobles over an AirPods Pro?
K371 I would take over the vast majority of ANC products. You might not. K361, those are also they're cheap as hell.
Sure. Okay.
Andrew,
but like,
would you take the new Noble headphone over the AirPods Pro?
The APP2?
Yeah.
Man, see, this is the thing. The APP2 is, as I said, that is the good ANC product that exists. And so, personally, I think there's a case for it, but I personally wouldn't.
Okay, so Super Review just said 99 classics are a guilty pleasure I take over ANC headphones. That was literally the bad reference for the Harman research in 2018.
What about the Dyson?
Bro, really listening to the zero score.
Dyson Zone.
So here's what I'll say. All of the headphones you mentioned might be preferred by someone in chat, and they might like them, and you might like them.
If they get the intended response.
Yes, but
I'm not sure I would recommend them to anyone in my life or anyone in chat on Discord.
Well, I wouldn't recommend to anyone with either hair or glasses, which covers a lot of people.
But again, this is why I have glasses. I mean, I'm fine with.
So
I think you guys are.
The reason is because when people buy a closeback, even people in our community, they expect bass. Like there is a connotation that comes with a closed back that it produces more bass than an open back headphone.
Yeah,
and
you
if they
get
don't
bass
get
from-
that, they are going to be disappointed.
So actually, I think you're mistaken on the K371, K361 because actually, if it is sitting a little bit further out, you actually get more bass.
No, I'm talking
then-
about it just having
like a
no
leakage
bass
effect?
on a lot of
Yeah.
heads. Yes.
I mean, it's true that you're going to get some leakage effect there, and I did test this, but it's not true to say that just because it is invariant that there aren't situations that are going to be totally fine.
sure. I'm
Also,
just saying.
why
yeah,
was just
it
talking
is-
about closebacks though? Why not?
Well, wait,
IEM?
isn't that
No,
the
I was just
articulation we
comparing
have here is
Comparing
in
like to
Russian
like, right?
roulette, there are 5 cylinders that are fine.
Yes.
Yeah, but I would actually say
Fair
it's
enough.
less. I would say it's less than 5 for a lot of the products you mentioned. Like I would say for the K371, it's more like 60.
No, I actually think Blaine's take is correct because if you do includes IEMs as well, right? Like I was comparing like to like, but I think that the Russian roulette example is good.
So I'm sorry, you enjoy comparing your position to
Yes.
just play Russian roulette foreheads.
Yes. I
Got
think
it.
so.
Fair
And,
enough.
and again, I think that also it really depends on the audience. Sorry, Cameron, we've been talking over you.
What? No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I wanted to get more of your position.
My position's mostly that like there's very few closed backs that I like, but there's a lot of IEMs that I like. And if I'm on the go, IEMs, whilst I do like the convenience, like okay, if I am in the gym or if I'm cooking or something, I'll use an ANC headphone just because having full wireless noise cancelling stuff's nice. And I'm not really caring about sound quality all that much.
Yeah,
to be
Blaine,
completely
that
honest.
thing is bad.
No, it's mediocre.
Sorry, continue.
Christ.
Continue.
But like, if sound quality is a concern, as I said, there's so many IEMs that I would pick over AirPods Pros 2, or it just doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't I go for one of those and probably for less money as well? Like
yeah,
I would take
and that's really where it
Katos
is.
over AirPods
Yeah.
Pro 2 any day.
And I would take the Hexa, right? So it's like in the IEM market, like you guys are concerned about edge cases with consistency, and that's very real and very fair, right?
Yeah.
Especially
Well, we're
for
concerned
again,
about
It's
a bunch
less
of other
edge
things,
cases
too.
and more the
No,
average
but-
case of how
but
much variation
consistency,
there
right?
is.
Consistency is a factor that you guys are concerned about, and I think for the average consumer, that is a thing.
Yeah,
that
I
is
mean, it's
going
far
to
from
be,
the only thing.
compelling. Yeah,
I mean, if
but
we're going
I'm
to talk
compelling
about
for
that
an
kind
audio
of stuff,
file,
then there's
too.
also things like AirPods Pro 2 where you can't even update the firmware or anything if you don't
the
have
battery
an iPhone.
is like
It's
terrible
just-
after like 6 months of use.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, it just-
there's a lot of other things. Like
Yeah.
if you don't have an iPhone, then just forget about it.
I don't
I'm
have an
curious to
iPhone.
try the new.
I still think it's the best sound
You
in
know?
TWS.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I am curious about those new Samsung like AirPods clones, effectively.
Oh, the Buds 3 or whatever it is.
The ones that look like silver
do they?
AirPods almost.
The ones
yeah,
where the
yeah.
ear tips disintegrate.
What?
Yeah, the ear tips on those ones break off.
And you're advocating for these or no?
Already?
I am not
No,
advocating
sorry.
for
Okay.
Buds 3.
I know. I'm saying I'd not heard them, but I'm curious to try them because I did like
Yeah.
the previous Buds Pro 2. I think it was.
All right, let us put this to a poll. I think we've heard the
Scott Pledger also
arguments.
just mentioned the iFigo pods, which, like, ignoring the ANC aspect, just that for wireless convenience makes a lot of IEMs really viable.
Yeah, no, our argument is basically that the sound quality improvement of actually getting consistent bass response is quite meaningful.
So
I
And that's not even
don't
counting the
deny
other
that. It's just that
conveniences.
most of the ANC headphones have issues elsewhere that override that for me.
I would agree that most of them do, but I would also say that almost all closed headphones suck. So
I mean,
I
if
don't
your-
disagree with
your
that
ar-
either.
If your argument though is that the bass consistency, because of its compelling nature and what we know for how most people react to it, is its indication of superiority over things that don't have that, with the concession that the rest of the sound quality matters less.
Well, it's not that it
objectively,
matters
the
less.
rest of the sound quality matters slightly less than bass. Like bass is
Yeah.
the
Yes.
highest correlation.
And for me,
with score.
if something is intolerable in the midst of the treble, it doesn't matter to me how good the bass is.
Well,
Like,
that's
Oh,
so.
yeah.
That's what
So-
we're saying. It's contingent on. Like yes, we get the benefits of
yeah,
the bass response. If we are comparing the rest of the response between the two product classes, ANC closed backs and not ANC closed backs, there's no real like huge difference in the quality.
I would
is
actually
I
say
think
that
Blaine's
ANC closed
position.
backs are slightly better on average, just
I
because
would
closed backs have so many bad ones.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I
On
would say they're
average, man, there's a
near-
ton of
near
awful
enough.
ANC ones too, though, man. Like,
Well, yeah, sure, but there's
you can't.
the same is true of passive
Again,
close
we're
back.
not talking about the bad ones. I think we're talking about the options that people should reasonably consider, and you would basically just disqualify all the awful headphones in both categories there, and you'd just be left with like the good ones. And I struggle to find any number of them with the over-ear ANC products.
I
that
think
exist.
I think both of us would put less good ones in the passive category than you would, and I would
Sorry.
certainly. And
We're
I would
saying
You would
that
disqualify
there
the
are-
majority
there are-
of the ones that I listed.
Yeah, because our own
Yes.
experience of them have been that they suck.
Have been worse. Yeah.
yes,
My
and I would
experience
do this. I would do the same for IEMs as well.
And you
Okay,
wouldn't do
fair
this for headphones like the Batiste and the Mark Levinson and the.
No, I mean, I
don't
didn't-
know what.
I've
you
never
would
I've
choose.
never heard the 5909, but I didn't think the Batiste is not really my example of like.
Okay, well, what's your
a
example
good-
of?
the AirPods Max?
Oh my god,
Yeah, and I don't
I
even
would
like the
put
headphone
the
that much.
Momentum
That's how
for
you know
above the
how grim it
Batiste.
is for
that
passive
is
close
rough,
backs.
dude. Oh my god,
I do not like.
I
the
thought
Batiste.
I don't like the headphone.
it's
But I also
awful.
don't like any passive closeback headphones.
It's so bad.
The AirPods Max.
Like
Yeah.
again, APP2. Then you have an argument, but you're telling me that AirPods
Yeah.
Max is better.
I'm saying the
than
response over 1 kilohertz for the
a
AirPods
K3
Max is
K371?
nearly
No,
or
I'm
just as
sorry.
bad as most
I'm
passive
sorry.
closeback headphones. Especially
No.
when
And
you
at
consider
low
that a lot of the
frequency,
passive ones don't have
I'm-
bass.
I got.
I think your better. Your argument should probably be maybe a Momentum 4. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. That could be in it if you want. Go for
I'd
it.
have
Like
to measure
Momentum
the
4
latest Quiet Comfort, but the Quiet Comforts I've heard I would also take over the Batiste.
But the Quiet Comforts have awful channel balance. That's a like design flaw that because I measured multiple units and they all had exactly the same significant
this
channel
is-
imbalance.
Isn't it usually just they have a peak on one side though?
It's a channel imbalance in several places. I did a video on this, and it's very, very
Hmm.
consistent for multiple units. And it's,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
it's
aware of
enough
the-
where you notice it.
Yeah.
Well, like actually, the basic response isn't that bad. Like wideband, I would say if they'd fix the channel matching, I would recommend that. It's comfortable too, right? Like the name is appropriate, but it's asymmetrical. Asymmetrical
Maya
sound.
says, on my head in situ, the AirPod Max measures the closest to the K371. It will be different for someone else. Maya is also correct. That is one of the big. And Maya also noted earlier that variations on his head and
Does
presumably
this-
on other heads he's probed.
Is this specifically like it's odd beats for the APM?
What?
Old Odyssey with Odyssey with.
He's just
beats.
talking about recessed pinna
Oh,
and a
God.
lot of bass. Yeah,
Yeah. Are you talking? So like, which region are you talking about, Maya?
I assume
just
under
overall?
1 kilohertz because that's where the feedback system would primarily be active.
Well, no, because the thing is, they also are going to have a lot of in situ variations because of acoustic impedance and coupling at high frequencies as well.
Yeah.
And that's a point that Maya was making, which is that in his measurements, these things have variations per head of over 15 dB.
For the APM,
15
For all of
dB.
them.
For,
Yeah.
for closed
I
back.
mean-
Oh, yeah, no.
headphones.
I would say
Closed
yeah,
headphones are a fucking crapshoot.
I
every
still
part
think
of the
people
below.
are.
I don't
more
think
likely
anyone
to
disagrees
find
with
them
that.
Sound good. Yeah, like yeah,
Also, we need to have a poll for the fucking podcast name.
we do. So first, let's
We do, actually.
a poll for this. We'll do a quick spicy round, just very
We
quick.
don't need to do a poll for this. We already
Okay.
know what chat's going to vote.
That
And it's
they're going
not
to vote
with
in
us.
favor. Yeah.
Oh, for the no, they're
All
not
right,
going to agree with
All right,
us.
let's go. Let's
Give
go.
us spicy takes if you've not
Give
done
us
so already.
spicy
We're going to talk
takes.
about them now.
Let's
And
okay.
far
Give me
as
some
the,
options for the podcast name. It just
Heart
says
You
yes or
says
no.
the Squiggly Air podcast.
Okay. The Air
I personally
Podcast.
vote that we go with signal to noise and distortion or Synad.
Noise and distortion. You fucking nerd. All right. Earbuds from Griffin.
Earbuds.
What was
He's
another
cute.
one? It just makes me cringe. Dynamic range.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so boring.
I
is very
also
boring.
oops, I screwed up.
check.
Sorry, I gotta
He
ignore
fucked
this
it
one.
up.
Yeah.
You what? All right.
I also don't like.
Hold on, you've
squiggly
misrepresented
air.
mine. It should just say
Yeah,
Synad.
it's
Oops, I
Oh.
deleted listeners' message that's pinned to the channel. All right, let's try this again. All right. Start a poll. Do you just want it to be cyanide?
Yes.
Good
Guys, go
friends,
through
bad
the
tuning.
spicy takes here while I'm doing this.
Spicy take. All these names suck. Good take, Lane.
Did you nuke all of the history of the chip?
Bluetooth connectivity is still one of the largest detractors to wireless headphones. That's
I did
fair.
not nuke.
Bluetooth as a
Yeah.
protocol kind of sucks.
Bluetooth really sucks. Looney Luna fixing bass with feedback is not a substitute for getting good steel. It's true. It is objectively
good
going to
take.
raise your distortion. The
Yeah.
flip side is it's better than not fixing it.
If you think these names are terrible, give us some good ones. We're
Yeah,
not
and
Bandage is
saying
not a
that all
substitute for
terrible.
skin.
Terrible.
terrible.
Yeah, and fixing the bass with just additive EQ, yes, includes raising distortion. But I'm not sure, like on the good. Well, so like on the example of like the AirPods Max, like I
I can't
wonder
add more
how
than
those
4
drivers
options. That's the
actually
problem.
respond.
Well, I mean, they presumably, are quite long throw because that's sort of part of how ANC works. But even so, it is
Frequent
worse than
response.
having an ideal seal.
Of course.
I mean,
Buds are still the best form factor for retaining situational awareness while listening. Objectively wrong.
That is a terrible
Check
take.
this out, dude. It clips onto your freaking ear. Doesn't occlude at all. That's the best form factor for awareness.
You should got to be
All right.
walking around with K1000s, and then you're.
I can only have 4 options, so this is not what
That's
we're going to
fine.
end up with.
Oh
but
my
let's
god, you
just
brought back the capitalized headphone.
Yeah, I know. Like, we're so bad at naming things that we've called this whole channel the fucking Headphone Show. Our forum is called the Headphone Community, and our website's called headphones.com. We're not exactly original.
I can't believe how many people are voting for the headphone podcast, actually.
No,
I warned
no,
you,
guys,
chat
you
would
can't
pick
have
something
earbuds
shitty on
with.
purpose.
Oh my god. Yeah,
You
I don't
can't
know
have-
why you threw that in there. None of
What,
us co-signed this.
The headphone podcast.
Earbuds
Somebody
is
said it in
good.
the chat.
I like that one.
What, the headphone podcast or earbuds?
No, earbuds.
Somebody says call it Soundstage. There's
No,
already so many podcasts called that.
I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. We could call it whatever, right? And it would work.
As
We
the
could call it.
Untitled Podcast.
We could call it, audiophiles need a friend. I was stumping for the Touch Grass podcast, which is like GRAS,
Too nerdy.
but that's too nerdy.
I like that one. I just feel like Grass at AP would be like, no, you can't do
Yeah.
that.
They wouldn't care. I mean, like, and
Probably
like,
not, but
the image, the thumbnail for it could just be like me touching the grass.
it would also just be so niche, but it is good.
Yeah. Or just frequency.
I can't
response.
believe
Let's
that the
call it
tie is going to be between the two worst options.
I mean, that's
Hello,
the downside.
dongle.
that none of us
No.
co-signed.
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean it needs.
Oh wait,
to
are you
be
talking about
included.
earbuds and headphone podcast?
Yeah.
No, earbuds is gonna win, and that's justice at work.
Earbuds is really just a terrible
It's
choice.
terrible. It's too. It makes me
It's
cringe just thinking about it.
Well,
Like, I
think
used to be
that's
on
why
board.
people like it.
You're joyless.
Well, you are.
No,
it
it's
is true.
just listener trying to be cute. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And
It
it
is kind
bothers
of
me.
uwu, to be
Ugh.
honest.
That's fine.
We've got to have like really cheesy like smile faces in a thumbnail. And
DMS, quick, think of a name for this podcast.
bad tuning, good questions.
Bad tuning is a good.
Wait,
a
that
good
sounds
name.
like a
Good.
reference.
Oh, this
to
is the
fucking
Bad
Hawaii
Tuning
Bad
podcast.
Boys, though.
the bad tuning podcast. I like that. Yeah.
Earbuds makes me think you guys are just golden retrievers in basketball.
How do you know that's not the case, Mark?
I would say, if anything, Griffin is that golden retriever.
Earbuds great for SEO.
Is
Is
it?
No, well, I mean for earbuds.
No, that's probably
people
true,
searching
actually.
that. But so is the headphone. But I mean, like some of the
Is
ones
it?
that are
Okay,
offered
someone
for this
says
are like
noise
Synad.
floor, and that's actually a good suggestion.
Ooh.
Wait,
noise
noise
floor
floor
is
is
actually
actually a
good.
really. I say we veto.
I'm sorry. I'm saying we veto the poll and we just do that. That's
Yep.
really
Yeah,
good.
that's
I'm
The
on
noise
board
floor.
with it. This is why
All
we
right.
had to have this
Lucifer,
conversation, though.
Thank you.
Noise
Lu-
floor. All right.
Lux. Oh, it's Lucifer. Hey.
All right. Hey, that's
So
from.
democracy has been vanquished yet again.
Yeah. All right.
God
I'm gonna end the poll.
bless.
Yeah.
I just
Who
want to let
needs
folks
it,
know
you
the
know?
way that the poll shook out here, so it'll post it in the chat if I end it. So for all of the terrible suggestions, Earbuds 1, and then barely, and then Headphone podcast.
Barely.
So this shows how bad Earbuds was as a choice when
that
the Headphone podcast
won by
right
1% against something that is terrible, and
All
then
right.
immediately thrown out once something better came along.
All right.
Noise
Thank
floor.
you,
We're going with the noise floor podcast.
Not the.
Thank you.
No, let's avoid the definite.
Just noise
article.
floor. Just noise floor. Yeah. All right.
Make
Right, you
sure
gotta
it
bring,
isn't
like, a
taken
free
first.
beanie
Scott.
to,
I don't
Okay,
know if
let me
anybody
see.
would choose that. So
Let me see what's mine.
Someone chose it, and
podcast?
it is, I think, defunct now.
all right, great. That's what we are now.
Yeah,
As
literally,
long as
the
it's
link
not,
doesn't go
like-
anywhere.
Head floor
No.
from Chef Steve.
I mean, headroom would also be an option, but it's a bit on the nose.
I think
Yeah, we
didn't
do own the
someone already
branding,
have
We do,
that?
yeah,
Like, as a
yeah.
website
We
or
we
something?
can use headroom actually.
But I hate it.
All right.
Noise floor is better.
Some quick spicy takes here, guys, because I do need to end this.
Yeah, where's the spice? Come on, guys.
mean, like, we
Manufacturers
can-
nerf their modest IEMs to protect higher ticket IEMs. I don't find that to be the case, actually.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's deliberately kneecapping their stuff. I
Quite
think that
quite
they're-
frankly, the market's too competitive to do that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people need to put out very strong tunings at the low end, both because like they need to compete with everything else that is very competitive already there, but also like that's where the market is widest, so they need to appeal for the widest range of people.
All hail Gaetan Lorho for blessing the human race with the APM.
Someone
that
says
is
the Signal and Balance
spicy.
podcast. I think Channel and Balance would work.
I
still like
think
the
noise
noise
floor
floor.
is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because
not
like
noise
it being
floor,
a
the noise
floor,
floor.
like a stage
Yeah.
for us to
No,
talk.
not the definite article.
All right, Scott says Bluetooth connectivity is still one of the largest detractors in wireless
Yeah, we
headphones.
already said that.
Oh, I missed that
It
one.
was a good
Okay.
take.
Yeah, I missed a whole bunch of these, so I'm kind of going back. Sorry, I deleted Headphone Show Bingo. I don't know how to undelete your message.
Oh, it's still there for me.
Oh, okay. Have we?
Real
have we
AC
achieved
says
bingo?
Blaine looks like he's about to explode. It's true.
And then he paid $2.
Huh?
It's what's really fucked up is I don't get that $2.
Yeah, so sad.
I mean, none of us do.
Invoice Andrew.
I don't get it.
Yeah, this podcast, by the way, was sponsored by No Cap Cans for real.com.
Is it still? Is that
Generous.
The
still the
number
website?
one place to learn about and buy.
I think
Oh,
so.
is
Hang
it-
on, I'm gonna post it.
No cap cans.
I'll post it in chat. No Cap Cans frfr.com.
No. I don't.
Oh my god, no way does that actually work.
Yeah,
I thought it was just no cap.
No, it is
no, it's
no cap cans
for
for real.
real.com.
All right.
Wow.
So thank you to our sponsor, headphones.com.
Otherwise known as
No Cap Cans for real.com.
for real.
It's a great place to
All right.
look at our reviews, to buy headphones, to buy cables, to buy
Base
general snake
dealer.
oil.
to buy paracetamol water.
Yes.
We
We
don't
do
sell
not
that
sell
yet.
paracetamol water.
So
If you want snake oil and cables, that's also there too.
Next,
Yep.
it's going to be
And-
snake soil. We're going to sell
it comes with a
Snake soil.
365-day return policy.
365
Honestly-
day return.
Oh,
for
wait,
the
wait,
shake
wait,
Just
this
soil.
is
do
a
that.
take.
Just have little
This is a good
bags
take.
of dirt called snake soil that we hand out at Can Jams.
This
Yes.
is a good take. Spicy take. Listener, in quotes, lost all credibility when he picked as best amp the Woo Audio WA7 because it looks good, meaning with zero consideration to sound quality. I
Ooh.
stand by that 1,000,000%.
Credibility in the dirt.
Nope, don't
How
care.
could you write an
Looks
article
sick
after
as
saying
hell.
something?
Every time I plugged into or used that thing, I would be very happy and I would
Yeah.
enjoy my music 10% more at least.
So I just thought of another podcast name, Only Cans.
No.
Not a good idea.
I see someone saying
But,
that fans. That's
funny.
terrible. I hate the reference to headphones as cans. I hate it.
Yeah, I
I
really
also
dislike
don't.
that.
I also don't love it. Yeah, I feel like that comes from the studio world more than anything.
I'm surprised Pud hasn't done that yet, like a baked bean headphone of some sort. I'm sure.
I'm
he might.
surprised.
Don't
But
give him
I
ideas.
love you.
Don't give
Could
him
have done a baked
ideas.
bean headphone.
Pud's
I have
doing
already
a
given him a
GoldenSound
horrible
headphone. He's
idea.
like, he sent me a photo and it's just like my logo, which he made in 3D
Oh, I saw that.
with the gramophone bit where the driver is. I'm like, oh,
Which,
God.
by the way,
This is-
really cool to see your logo like actualized in 3D. Like I,
that was quite cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
right?
I'm very curious to see how those sound. So that was
So says the name should have
Probably
been the
gonna be
podcast
hilarious.
show.
the podcast show.
podcast, but podcast in all caps.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask. just because I'm trying to make our streams longer every time we do them. Andrew, or well, actually, is everyone who's not Andrew willing to stick around because he could potentially throw one of us the stream key?
I'm happy to.
I can for a little bit. I can do like another 20 minutes.
Oh well, never mind then. It's not worth.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say that would be contingent on me being willing to do that, and I would just
Don't trust Blaine.
can't
Tear it all down.
Why?
because Blaine is an
Jacob
agent of
Sekla
chaos.
Asks,
Doesn't have to be
what
me.
makes headphones more technical
That's
than
true.
others?
It could be
putting
Cameron.
aside
I would trust
FR?
Cameron.
Exactly.
So the thing is that you can't put aside FR. It is in the FR. The problem with the technicalities thing isn't that the FR doesn't describe it. It's that we don't really have a great way to evaluate what we perceive as the technicalities from the FR yet, for two reasons. One is just the general understanding of it is poor, but also the fact that most of the time when you look at a graph, it's quite heavily smooth, which may obscure certain things.
I mean, this is also like the
Also,
forever
in situ
question.
variation.
Yeah, we don't know what's happening
Yeah.
on their heads.
This is the forever question that people hit us with, but I want to just bring this quickly to something. Cameron, you've also said similar things about amplifiers and distortion profiles, and maybe the things that are affecting or causing psychoacoustic effects could be contained within that, but the analysis of that is just non-existent.
Yes,
right, because
Yeah.
it's either
like
it's often like either you hear it or you don't, right? Like it's like
yes,
audibly
like
transparent.
with amps and DACs, I've never heard a difference between two things where you can't show a measurable difference. If ever I was able to hear something, there was always a usually fairly obvious measurable difference. It's just that how that
So
correlates to what you hear.
hold on, wait. I have an answer for that one, Blaine.
Yeah.
So let's read it first. Any headphones that need a special amp or converter aren't
No,
worth it?
no.
Also,
I'm
first
gonna
time I've
answer
seen
other
the
question.
shekel symbol in quite a while.
What makes
That's-
headphones more technical than others? Putting aside FR, price. Now we can move on to the next question.
All right. Real AC says, where does this money go? Into a pit? Yes. So actually,
Yeah.
the money goes to. We do have it sort of like indicated as like the thing that comes from YouTube. So it goes to do several things. It goes to fund, in this particular instance, ping.gg. Because that costs money. It goes to fund other things of that nature, so production related costs for this, but most importantly it goes to sending people to trade shows to do coverage of them, or like factory tours and stuff like that. So that's where the YouTube money is kind of earmarked for, I suppose. But so don't think that you're buying us coffee, because you're not.
If you want to do that, you have to go to our personal
You're
Patreons.
buying us plane tickets, which is also
Exactly.
Actually, wait, why don't I have am I the only one here without a Patreon?
I don't have one.
I don't have a Patreon.
Why do you not have a Patreon? Why do both of you not have a Patreon? You both provide online services.
I don't know. I don't like the concept.
Wait,
I don't
chat.
like the concept. I don't like withholding.
Make a poll. Chat, should everyone here have a Patreon?
I think Blaine should have a Patreon too.
Douglas
A Blaine-
hooked me up with
a
Float
Blaine
Plane. I
trail.
asked to join, they said no.
Spicy take. Your
I'm gonna say yes now.
spicy take from Looney Luna. Our in-ear target lost to Harman IE 2019, presumably in the pilot study, because it sounds closer to headphones.
So actually, the issue was that they didn't use our target.
Oh, come
It's Blaine's
on.
fault.
I don't.
It's
Bro
Blaine's
is
fault.
just jerking the spider again.
It was different enough. So like the one that we actually use is way closer to the Soundgeist target. The Soundgeist is a bit different in the upper treble, I think, but for the rest of it, it's pretty darn bang on. And that
The
one
difference
did
was literally a
perform
small notch at 2 point some odd
and
K.
it's a notch that goddamn matters.
It doesn't matter because it was a statistical tie, which literally means it doesn't.
No, it wasn't. Not
Yeah,
for
I think
not
the
for
real
one that
answer
we
here
submitted.
is that looking into this as a win or a lose is not how you should be looking at.
Actually,
pilot
that is true. That is true.
studies.
They were a fucking statistical tie with each other.
The Soundguys one and the Harman one were. Ours was not. But that's
Ours
because
was a
ours was
statistical tie
2015.
with Harman.
DMS says
I
he wants to host a
don't believe-
podcast
I think you're
where
confusing two
Blaine
slides.
resolves Cameron and Listener
I'm
are
not.
all his sons. and
How
they battle
dare
for
you
the title of
question
favorite
my
son.
reading of slides?
So
Blaine was actually in the slides.
I was.
that's true. He was in the slides.
How much
Oh,
do I
yeah.
have
Getting
to donate
roasted.
to get Blaine at CanJam SoCal?
He's going to be
Approximately
there.
$500.
That's actually a conservative. Oh yeah, I guess your flight wouldn't be very very long. Yeah.
All right.
If someone donates $500,
Wait, what were we making a poll about?
If we get 500 viewers at once, we unshave Andrew's head. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
All right,
love
this is getting
DMS
involved.
so much.
this is getting off topic.
By the way, did you
OnlyFans
guys-
with pictures of Andrew smiling.
Okay, so this is an
feels
interesting
like
one. Chef
punishment.
Steve says, I find it hard to keep interested in IEMs when so many come out so quickly. By the time you get to talk about them, the next one is out. I feel like that's not that spicy of a take, but it's...
Welcome
What
to
are you
the
guys' thoughts
churn.
on that? Yes.
This flavor of the month-itis.
It's to me, it's like that was inevitable, and we're dealing with that now. With
I mean, the thing with IEMs is it's so easy to iterate on them, to make deliberate tuning changes, and sort of the manufacturing of them from the ergonomics perspective is a lot less complicated compared to a full-on headphone. So you can just do it so quickly. Hence, we see a bajillion of them coming out every year.
I think it'd be
It is
frustrating if people just stop
Yeah.
buying.
Yeah, part of the
Well,
issue is that people
won't.
keep buying them.
I know, but it'd be
So-
so interesting if just like all at once we just stopped buying them, and then IEM manufacturers had to like take a second.
Yep.
What would they do?
all right, guys, we need to end the stream. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. And
Wait, you didn't put up my vote. This is fucked up.
Wait,
what is your
was the
vote?
for?
Should everyone in this stream currently have a Patreon?
That's a stupid vote. I'm gonna veto it.
We need to know what the public thinks.
Don't get your headphones from Bartertown. I'm not familiar with that, but thank you, Rob. All right.
No, that's a good take. Don't get your headphones from Bartertown.
I don't know what that is.
Headphones ones from Bartertown.
Sorry. Okay. Poll is: should we all have Patreons? This is a stupid. Oh my god.
We'll see if it's stupid once the people reply.
Let
Spicy take.
the
IEMs
voice
don't
of the
exist. That's a
masses
good take.
ring out.
Oh, so now you want to trust in the voice of the people when every
Listen,
other poll
Margaret
has
Thatcher
been you
said-
can't trust them.
Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret
said that
Thatcher.
referendums are the
Okay,
tool-
please don't be quoting Margaret Thatcher right now.
I am a demagogue.
Next, he's going to start quoting Ayn Rand.
How did Margaret Thatcher come into this?
Ooh, look who's winning. Look who's winning.
Stop the count.
See, my reasoning for not
Stop
doing
the
this,
count.
stop the steal. My reasoning for not wanting it is I don't want to like gatekeep content. I don't have time to like separate that shit. And
Some
It's like,
people are saying they
have to?
voted no because they want us to have OnlyFans.
no, it's so that I would have something that
OnlyFans
people
or
would
nothing.
pay for, right? Like, I'm not gonna. I don't want to gatekeep, measurements or stuff like that, right? Like, and the other thing is, I hate doing like the whole like purchase recommendations because I don't know what people's preferences are.
Yeah.
So like, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, if I had a Patreon, it wouldn't have any like exclusive content. It would just have a place where people can send me money, and nothing about
That's
my
it.
content or my life changes.
That's the worst
That's it.
Patreon ever.
that's not even.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's
just
why I
like,
don't have one. It
people-
wouldn't.
people
It wouldn't have.
people are
any-
Yes,
irresponsible
so
with
long
their
as
money.
Blaine's Patreon is actually an OnlyFans where he just rants about measurements.
Oh, dear.
Are you saying you want me to be camming while ranting about measurements, or do you just
All
want
right,
me to be
this
ranting about
this has gone
measurements?
off the rails. So
Patreon.com/GoldenSound.
I'm just gonna end. We're gonna end the stream on this terrible disappointment because it genuinely is a terrible disappointment. Last shout out here, thanks from Abi. Thanks for bringing the Megafest to my attention. I choose that plus Trelalalali at my favorite instead of Storm. Glad to hear that you enjoy that one, and it's also nice that some of these tunings are, let's say new meta tunings are working their way down market, and hopefully we see more of that too. Okay, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Big shout outs to our to Blaine, Griffin, and Cameron for joining. And of course, shout out to Mr. Super in the chat, Capper Audio, and all of our regular folks here. Always
And
nice
of course,
to see everybody.
Headphones.com.
Headphones.com.
Without whom we would not be here.
That's right. I would not exist. Okay. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Buy stuff with a 1-year return policy, you fuckers.
Jesus. You think that's compelling, Blaine? I don't know.